Now, Donald Trump is not alone. He is also accompanied by several key administration figures as well. We know that traveling with him were including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and CIA Chief John Ratcliffe. What we know is that Donald Trump will be meeting with the Israeli hostages as well.
We need to walk through here, okay? So we're going to have to clear a lane. We're going to have to clear a lane and scoot back so the president can walk around, okay? Perfect. He's going to walk around this way. Correct. Yeah, you can go around that way.
And here we have visuals from Tel Aviv's Hostage Square as well, where a crowd of people are there, jubilant of receiving news of the Israeli hostages being released. There it is.
Prime Minister's joined in, yeah? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm sure that's it. Okay. I've got my back to this. Okay.
Now, the last time that we know an American president had traveled to Israel 11 days after the October 7 terror attack, where passengers aboard Air Force One received pocket-sized note cards describing how to behave. Now, this is, of course, the last time it was then President Joe Biden. And now, almost exactly 2 years later, another president is making another last-minute trip to the country. Of course, this is after Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan has now started with the release of 7 Israeli hostages. All right, what we know as of now, just to and there we have all the leaders in the car. Now, what we know for people just joining us is that Hamas has, of course, begun the release of hostages from Gaza. The first 7 of the 20 surviving Israeli hostages have been released. In Tel Aviv, Mila, hundreds of people did gather on the hostages square, and they erupted in joy as the news broke of the first releases. Now, this is on October 7, 2023, that Hamas had seized 251 hostages during an unprecedented attack on Israel. All but 47 of the hostages were freed in earlier truces. Only 20 of these are expected to be alive. Hamas will also be releasing the remains of others. That is what we know. According to reports, Israel has also begun releasing around 2,000 detainees in exchange. Among the prisoners to be released, 250 are security detainees, including many convicted of killing Israelis. About 1,700 were detained by the Israeli army in Gaza during the war. Earlier, Israel did also release the name of 7 hostages who have been released. And according to the Israeli Foreign Ministry, they are Guy Gilboa Dalal, Eitan Moore, Matan Angrest, Alon Ohel, Ziv Berman, and Omri Miran. Now, Israel Army has also said that the Red Cross convoy is on its way to pick up the second group of Gaza hostages. That is what we know. And now also we know as U.S. President Donald Trump, who has been watching the release of hostages and live streaming on his Air Force One, has finally landed in Ben Gurion Airport. We know that Trump will be ready to meet the hostages' families. He will also be giving a speech in the Knesset, after which he will be moving to Egypt for a summit. Now, he has arrived in Israel. Now, what we also know is that the IDF personnel and medical personnel are accompanying these 7 hostages, and they will be undergoing an initial medical assessment and will also be meeting with their families at the absorption point in the Gaza Strip. Now, IDF representatives are accompanying all the family members as well, who are waiting in the hospitals and also are being provided with regular updates. Now, the IDF is prepared to absorb additional abductees who will be transferred to the Red Cross later. Now, what we know latest is that Israeli army have said that now the Red Cross is on their way to pick up the second group of Gaza hostages. We know that 7 have been released, and now we are just getting news that Israeli army says that Red Cross is also on the way to pick up a second group of Gaza hostages. This is meanwhile hundreds have erupted in cheers and tears and have also been singing songs in Tel Aviv's Hostages Square, thanking Donald Trump for finally getting the hostages deal done. Now, many had come as the sun rose, carrying pictures of the hostages, waving Israeli flags, bearing a yellow ribbon, which has been a symbol of movement calling for hostages release. Earlier, even Israeli President Isaac Herzog on Monday had also welcomed the release of 7 hostages by Hamas and said that Israel is awaiting the release of all the remaining hostages. We have been receiving reactions from international leaders such as French President as well, who have said, and I'm quoting here, "I share in the joy of families and joy of the people of Israel following the recent transfer of 7 of the hostages into the hands of Red Cross." And there is the motorcade of Donald Trump leaving the Ben Gurion airport. We know that President Trump will be meeting the hostages' families as well, and will also be greeting the freed hostages in person. Earlier, we also knew there was a joint statement from the IDF spokesperson and Shin Bet spokesperson. They had said that they are currently on their way to the initial reception point in southern Israel, where they will reunite with their families. IDF is prepared to receive additional hostages who are expected to be transferred to the Red Cross later. Now, just to summarize, U.S. President Donald Trump has landed. He is in Israel, where he is expected to address the Israeli parliament before traveling to Egypt to host a summit on peace in West Asia. On the other hand, 7 of the 20 living hostages are now crossed the border into Israel and will be receiving initial treatment and be united with their families. We know Donald Trump will also be meeting them in person. Now, Red Cross vehicles have arrived at the site in Gaza, ready to collect the second batch of hostages. That is the latest that we know, that the Israeli army has announced that Red Cross vehicles have arrived at site in Gaza that are ready to collect the second batch of hostages. Now, in total, 20 living hostages are due to be released today. The hostages were kidnapped 2 years ago in southern Israel during the 7 October attacks in 2023. Now, there were loud cheers in Tel Aviv at the Hostages Square as news of the release had emerged. 7 Israeli hostages have been freed. A second group of hostages will be released, and the Red Cross vehicles are on their way to the site to collect the second batch of the hostages. Now, again, earlier on his way to the region, Trump had declared the war is over in Gaza. Although the next phases in Israel-Hamas, of course, we'll have to see. The deal still needs to be negotiated. Several sticking points that we know that will be discussed, not just here, but also the peace summit in West Asia in Egypt.
What's up with that?
I don't know, but we're going to make everybody happy. The one thing I can tell you is everybody is happy, whether it's Jewish or Muslim or the Arab countries. Every country is dancing in the streets, and It's a point in time. I don't think you'd ever see it again. They've never seen it for 3,000 years. If you like one group, you don't like the other group. And if you like the other group, you don't like the first group. And this is the first time they've ever seen where everybody is unified. Because as you know, we're going to Egypt after Israel. And we're going to meet all of the leaders of the very powerful and big countries and very rich countries and others. And they're all into this deal. Everybody's into it. It's never happened before. So I would say this is a lot tougher, but we'll see how it all works out.
Mr. President, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, has not gone so far as to say the war is over. In your view, is the war
The war is over. War is over. The war is over. Okay, you understand that?
Mr. President, is the ceasefire going to hold? Are you confident the ceasefire will hold?
Say it.
Are you confident that the ceasefire is going to hold?
I think so. I think it's going to hold. I think people are a lot of reasons why it's going to hold, but I think people are tired of it. It's been centuries, okay? Not just recent. It's been centuries. I think people are tired of it. Yeah, the ceasefire is going to hold, and we're going to make sure it holds.
Mr. President, what will Gaza look like a year from now?
Wait.
The International Stabilization Force, that's part of the...
Strong force. I don't think it's going to have a big impact because I think barely we're going to have to use it. I think everybody knows their place. It's going to be great for everybody. It's going to be great for the surrounding countries, Arab, Muslim, all of them. It's going to be great for Israel. Everybody is happy, and I think it's going to stay that way. Peter?
And if the ceasefire does hold, how long until we get to the part of the 2020?
Now, breaking news just coming in. The Israel Army says that a Red Cross convoy is on its way to pick up a second group of Gaza hostages. Now, what we know is earlier 7 hostages were released in the first group of hostages. Israel has released the names of the 7 hostages who have been released so far. And according to the Israeli Foreign Ministry, they are Guy Gilboa Delal, Eitan Mor, Matan Angrest, Alon Ohel Ghali, and Ziv Berman, as well as Omri Miran. And as soon as these names were taken, there were jubilant vibe and at the hostages square as the names were taken. The Israeli military has said that they received 7 released hostages who were earlier handed to the Red Cross in Gaza. Now, among the hostages released is Matan Angrest, an IDF soldier. Was then 21. Angres was serving as a tank driver when Hamas militants attacked. His tank was ambushed, killing his fellow crew members. Well, Hamas body cam footage from April 2025 did show him being dragged, wounded, and unconscious from the tank. Now, what we know right now is that Israel has named 7 hostages that had been released earlier, and the names are Guy Gilboa Delal, Eitan Mor, Matan Angres, Alon Ohel Gali, and Ziv Berman, as well as Omri Miran. Now, the Israeli military has said that they received 7 released hostages who were earlier handed to the Red Cross in Gaza. Now, this is the latest that we are getting in. Of course, also we know that Israeli army has said that a Red Cross convoy is also on its way to pick up second group of Gaza hostages. And earlier 7 hostages were released in the first group of hostages. We know that 20 of them are to be released today in the first phase of Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan. Now, all the 20 Israeli hostages thought to be alive in Gaza are expected to be freed within hours. 7 we know have already been released. Second phase have already begun. Nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees in Israel will also be freed as part of the first crucial phase of the U.S. brokered ceasefire deal. Of course, we earlier knew that Trump did say and had said that ceasefire will stay in place. Also, we know breaking news is coming in. Hundreds have also gathered at Hostages Square in Tel Aviv to watch the release of the hostages. There were, of course, emotional scenes that were seen as the crowds carried posters and banners, especially thanking President Donald Trump, that you can see on your screens. Now, these were the visuals of the hundreds of people gathered at Hostages Square who have been here protesting throughout these 2 years. These people at the Hostages Square in Tel Aviv were watching the release of the hostages, and they got emotional as soon as the names were being announced of these hostages being released. Now, right now, these are the live visuals from the Hostages Square in Tel Aviv of crowds of people being emotional. And earlier, they are carrying posters and banners. They're especially thanking President Donald Trump to have made this whole deal possible. We can see the change in emotions from just a few weeks ago, where there was agony and anger, and now they are now jubilant, knowing that the Israeli hostages will all be released today, and thanking Donald Trump, whose 20-point peace plan has actually made it happen. With 7 of them already released, the wait is for the rest of them to come home as well. You know, the U.S. President Donald Trump has also arrived in Israel and will be meeting the freed Israeli hostages in person. Overwhelming emotions in the crowd. Now, these are the pictures coming in from Tel Aviv with people with banners and Israeli flags, finally happy about the release of the Israeli hostages that they have been protesting for the past several months. What we know so far is that Israeli army has said that a Red Cross convoy is on its way to pick up second group of Gaza hostages. And earlier, of course, 7 of them were released in the first group of hostages. Israel even released the names of the 7 hostages who have been released. Now, according to the Israeli Foreign Ministry, the names are Guy Gilboa Dalal, Eitan Mor, Matan Angrest, Alon Ohel, Khali, and Ziv Berman, as well as Omri Miran. Now, the Israeli military did say that they received 7 released hostages who were earlier handed to the Red Cross, who then transferred it to the Israeli military. Among the hostages released is Matan Angrest, and then an IDF soldier who was then 21. He was serving as a tank driver when Hamas militants had attacked. His tank was ambushed. Okay, these are the visuals from Gaza, where the Gazans are waiting for Palestinian prisoners and detainees to be released. Now, this is in exchange for the 20 Israeli hostages that were released by Hamas. What we know is in exchange for the Israeli hostages, Israel is releasing 250 Palestinian prisoners and more than 1,700 detainees. And these are the visuals from Gaza just coming in. A crowd of Gazans waiting for the release of the Palestinian prisoners, of course, also waiting for what is next to come after this first phase is over. What we know is Donald Trump, U.S. president, who has landed in Israel, will be going to Egypt to discuss upon this very deal that he has proposed, a 20-point peace plan. Now again, for people just coming in, 7 Israeli hostages have been freed in Gaza. A second phase have also begun. A second group will also be released soon. Now, of course, the first phase have already begun. It is yet to see what happens next. We'll be looking at Donald Trump, who will be meeting the hostages, giving a speech at Knesset, and moving to Egypt for an international summit as well. We'll be getting you all the details from the ground. We'll be slipping into a small break and coming back with the latest there. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders, psychopaths who defy explanation, international war crimes, and millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Hemkor Suru and here's a look at all the top stories that we're tracking for you at this hour.
להתראות חבר, מחזיקים אצבעות.
Hundreds erupt in cheers, tears and songs at Tel Aviv's Hostages Square as news broke out that the first hostages had been released from 2 years of captivity in Gaza. Many came as the sun rose, carrying pictures of the hostages waving Israeli flags.
להתראות חבר, מחזיקים אצבעות.
All right, and big day today. Welcome back to our continuing coverage from West Asia. Hamas began to release hostages from Gaza. The first 7 of the 20 surviving Israeli hostages have been released. In Tel Aviv, hundreds of people gathered on Hostages Square. Joy, tears and cheers broke out as news broke that the first hostages had been released. On the 7th of October 2023, as you would recall, Hamas seized 251 hostages during an unprecedented attack on Israel, which started this war in West Asia that we've been seeing for the past 2 years. All but 47 of the hostages were freed in earlier truces. 20 of these are expected alive. Hamas will also release the remains of the others. Israel also began releasing around 2,000 detainees in exchange. Among the prisoners to be released, 250 are security detainees, including many convicted of killing Israelis. About 1,700 were detained by the Israeli army in Gaza during the war. US President Donald Trump is in Israel. He was greeted on the red carpet at Ben Gurion Airport by Netanyahu and President Isaac Herzog. What's important to note here is that Trump will travel to Egypt, where he will co-host a Gaza Peace Summit with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. So these are the big developments coming in from West Asia so far through the course of the day. Hamas released 7 hostages into the custody of Red Cross on Monday, the first to be released as part of a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war, which we've been seeing for over 2 years now. There was no immediate information on their condition. Hamas has said 20 living hostages will be released for over 1,900 Palestinian prisoners. We're also expecting the remains of other hostages to come back to Israel as well. Families and friends of hostages broke out into wild cheers as Israeli channels announced the hostages were in the hands of the Red Cross. And as you know, US President Donald Trump is on a high-stakes peace trip, is what they're calling it, to Israel. Later will be going to Egypt, declaring that the war is over in Gaza. Despite, however, the uncertainty that continues about what will follow once the ceasefire and hostage deal with Hamas goes through. For more on this, joining us on the broadcast is Olu Uzolgur, a former Turkish diplomat, Turkey ambassador to Libya and France as well. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. It is a big day. We have been seeing that Trump has declared that the war is over. He is in Israel right now. A red carpet welcome that was rolled out for him. What is your take on how the situation is panning out now? Because, of course, there's much that remains to be discussed and seen once this hostage deal and ceasefire is through.
Well, this has been a long road, if you wish, where everybody was eager to try to solve the problem, because both sides were not prepared to accept the conditions of the other side. And fortunately, we've come to a happy end at the beginning, but this doesn't mean that the problem is solved. Why I'm saying this? Okay, the hostages were returned, and there were 80 in reality, but most of them are buried and they are dead. So there are only 20 living, and they were all given to Israel. In return, from the Israeli prisons, there are unknown numbers of hostages who are waiting to be released by the Israelis and given to Hamas. So, but the problem is solved, and actually, we are moving towards a happy end for the time being. Altogether, not only Israelis and the Hamas, but the whole world as well, because the genocide that we were witnessed until now is over, at least, and we hope that it will not come back again one way or another. Why? Because now Mr. Trump, the President Trump, has arrived. They will have a meeting of 4 hours altogether, and during which most probably Mr. Trump will try to find out what would be done in Egypt at the second round of the negotiations. Why I'm saying this? Because now everybody is happy, those who have returned home and those who are not returned but who expect to be returned, etc. And this is a good signal. But when you come to the second round in Egypt, it's more difficult, and even more difficult than, I mean, it's almost impossible to achieve anything from the beginning. And there will be a hard debate among all those who participate in this meeting in Egypt. Don't forget that around 20 or 25 heads of states from all over the world are coming to Egypt to assist the the second round discussions altogether. Now,
Right.
what will happen? This is the problem that everybody is asking himself, including myself, because now Egypt is has already had together with Qatar, and of course Turkey. The Turkish president was very helpful in receiving the hostages from the Hamas side as well, because had our president not intervened, Mr. Trump said openly accepted it. Had the Turkish side did not intervened on time and convinced the opposite sides for what they have accepted in the end to happen. The role is becoming even more important in Egypt because of the success that the Turkish president could bring in.
Right.
So this is...
Right, sorry,
Yes, please.
Mr. Ozulka, if I could just come in there. Of course, you've raised quite a few pertinent issues there. And that is what my next question was going to be as well. We're going to see the second phase, and that's the peace talks as well. And we're going to see how the second phase pans out. That being said, there's a lot that still remains unanswered, and that appears to be the big point of contention, even though there are loud cheers and tears and all the songs that people burst out in Israel. We are seeing a ceasefire now. I believe the question is, what comes next? Is this really an opportunity to once and for all sort out the issues that still persist on ground?
Well, the problem is that Hamas is willing to be accepted as the how would I say, the properties that Hamas says belongs to us, and then of course our position there would be to take back what we have lost to Israel in the past. Well, but what does it mean? Shortly, Israel in reality did not quit Gaza. Gaza is still depending on the will or on the truth that the Israel will in the end probably will accept or will refuse. If Israel refuses and does not wish to go any further with these successful steps that are being taken actually, will return back to the beginning, and unfortunately there will be no solution to it. So there are two problems to solve at this stage actually. The first one is that how will all these participants convince Israel to become a smooth ally with them, or would Israel refuse everything and say, no, Gaza is not in negotiation actually, because Gaza is in Israeli territory, and as such, all the Palestinians who will return home or who are returning already home will be only the accepted people, but not the how would I say, not the real possessors of the situation in the country. So Gaza, in reality, will remain as an Israeli state, but not belong to Hamas, whatever the issue is. So there, Hamas has forwarded one request in the end, and they said from now on in Gaza there will be one government, and this government will be governed by the Palestinians and not by Israelis anymore. And President Trump has also given, he's spoken of the future, and he said, allow me to assume all the responsibilities in Gaza for the coming 10 years, and during which Gaza will again be the paradise that we are willing to reconstitute altogether. So there, the problem is, according to what President Trump has said, will not return it directly to Israel, probably not, but in the same time, will assume the responsibility for 10 years, and this territory will continue to be Israel's territory in the long run. And he also, President Trump also introduced another request or a position. He said, as you know, there are two Gazas in reality in Israel, under Israel rule, and the one in northeast Syria. Mr. Trump has said, we will, in any case, not give in this territory, and it will never be again an Israeli territory, whatever Mr. Netanyahu wishes.
Right.
So, as such, Gaza is a lost territory in the minds of the Israeli government, and the solution will be extremely difficult to achieve.
Right, then Mr. Azolkar, of course, that's a big statement there that Gaza in that case as such would be a lost territory. That being said, would you then say that we're back to square one, that perhaps as long as the question of statehood, which is not part of this 20-point peace plan either, and there remains no clarity on this, would you say then, can this be called the end of the war? Because that's what Trump has been claiming. Also on the other side, we hear Netanyahu saying that the battle is not over. So what are we really looking at here?
Well, as when you look into what the participants in the meeting in Egypt have already announced until now, everybody is very cautious, if you wish. I mean, nobody has certainly. Everybody wishes to achieve a peace in the region. But nobody is sure that this peace will come quickly, and it's the final end that we have achieved from the beginning. I'm 100% sure that there will be very hard discussions, and the problem, the basic problem, will start to take over the other possibilities, because Hamas will really insist in asking for the return of Gaza to them, and the territory to be governed by the Palestinians directly, and that the Israelis would not have anything to say or anything to bring in the region. So this will be the acceptance of Hamas as a return of the territory which they had until now, and take this territory as well from Israel. And even Mr. Trump, as I tried to explain, said that Gaza, yes, but this northeastern the part of the territory which is complementary to Gaza, or Gaza complementary to this territory, will never be given to Israel. And all these steps will ask a lot of discussion, and it's not sure that Mr. Netanyahu is ready to accept this offer in favor of Hamas neither. So it will be a longer run race, and happily, let's hope that they will not return back to the genocide times, because it's awful, and we have to bring a solution to this problem as
Absolutely.
well, as quickly as possible.
Absolutely, of course. This is, of course, however, if we are seeing the visuals that we're getting right now as well, and there are, of course, cheers, people, they're waiting for the hostages as well. Even the Israeli president said that they're waiting for every last one to come back. But as you mentioned, there's so much that still needs to be discussed. Of course, on the surface, this is still a big day. We've seen 2 years of this deadly war. We've seen the hostages who've been in captivity for 2 years as well. We are finally seeing the release. Perhaps a few months ago, even this would have seemed like something that was almost impossible. However, we are seeing that, and everything sort of just hinges on, from what I'm gathering from our discussion also, on the second part of this day, and that is the peace summit in Egypt. What are the big outcomes that we can expect, if at all?
Well, we are still living in the dream that we created ourselves concerning this problem. When we'll wake up, when we'll see the truth, I think that we'll understand that the problem is more difficult to solve than if everything as it goes actually continued. We'll be fighting in a different terrain. I mean, we cannot expect the Israelis to give in. Mr. Trump is making pressure on, full pressure on Israel, and without the United States, Israel cannot be successful, and the problem cannot be solved. Don't forget that even when the Iran was bombed, the United States has given all the armament, whatever the Israelis needed in that respect. So without United States, Netanyahu is in difficulty as well. But Mr. Trump is also in difficulty because he's the leading person in this context. But the problem is that if he loses the support of the Israelis, the Jewish people in the United States, unfortunately, he will not be successful in the future round of elections in this country. So he's very calm, and in reality, he's helping Netanyahu, and he's not. He does not seem to be against Netanyahu. They are in good terms, and whether Mr. Trump will be successful in making pressure on Israel and create the future solution by this pressure-making instance, I'm not sure there neither, because when I see the relations between Trump and Netanyahu, I don't think that Mr. Trump will go that far. And there will be an in-between solution probably, but then I'm not sure whether this time Hamas accepts this offer or not. In the end, nobody knows what will be the future in that context. And then there is one thing. The first round is finished. And for the second round, as you know, Mr. Trump has given a paper of 20 different solutions that could be brought to this Gaza problem. Would this be successful in finding solutions in the future? I'm not sure at all, because there are at least 4 or 5 articles in this offer or in this demand, which does not give an answer to the future expectations of Hamas neither. Just 2 examples to that. In this, among these 20 proposals that brought in, he never spoke of 2 sovereign states, Gaza and the rest. I mean, he never spoke of the existence of a solution in that respect. So he said, in reality, these territories will belong to Israel without any condition to Israel. And if Palestinian people wishes to live in Gaza in the future, returning from their previous stories, because they were all leaving at the time, but they can be live there only with the acceptance of Israel's presence and the appartenance of the territory to them.
All right, Mr. Ozolkor, thank you so much for joining us on the show with your insights on this. Of course, there are yet a lot of things to be discussed, a lot of things that require clarity as well. Let's just go across to the visuals that we're getting from Tel Aviv right now as well. Out in Tel Aviv.
הובטח לנו מזמן שהם יחזרו, שעובדים על זה, שרגע, שבשלה העת, שציר נצרים, שציר נפילדלפי, whatever, הם פה, הם כאן, הם איתנו, זה הרגע שלכם, זאת ההיסטוריה, אנחנו כותבים אותה, אנחנו עדים אליה.
All right, and those were visuals from Tel Aviv, and we'll of course continue our coverage from West Asia and continue to bring you all the developments as and when they come in. With now, it's a wrap on this edition of the News Bulletin. Thank you so much for joining us.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Him Korsaro and here's a look at all the top stories that we're tracking for you right now.
להתראות חבר, מחזיקים אצבעות.
Hundreds erupt in cheers, tears and songs at Tel Aviv's Hostages Square as news broke that the first hostages had been released from 2 years of captivity in Gaza. Hamas has now released all 20 live hostages. US President Donald Trump is in Tel Aviv to mark the US brokered ceasefire. As Hamas begins releasing hostages, he heads to Cairo for the Gaza Peace Summit later today. Nepali student Bipin Joshi not in the list of 20 hostages freed under US brokered ceasefire. Nepal's ambassador to Israel has confirmed the news. The family has been informed. Efforts on to trace the body. Now we are continuing with our coverage from West Asia. Hamas has released 20 Israeli hostages held in Gaza. An Israeli public radio is reporting a second group of 13 Israeli hostages have been released to the Red Cross. Earlier, the 7 of 20 surviving Israeli hostages have been released in the first batch. Now 13, that makes it 20 alive hostages have been released. These are the live visuals that we're getting right now. Hundreds of people gathered on Hostages Square, erupted in joy as news broke out of the release of hostages. On the 7th of October 2023, Hamas seized 251 hostages during an unprecedented attack on Israel. But all 47 of the hostages were freed in earlier truces. Only 20 of these are expected to be alive. Hamas will also release the remains of the others. Israel has also begun releasing around 2,000 detainees in exchange. Among the prisoners to be released, 250 are security detainees, including many convicted of killing Israelis. About 1,700 were detained by Israeli army in Gaza during this war. US President Donald Trump has arrived in Israel. He was greeted on the red carpet at Ben Gurion Airport by Netanyahu and President Isaac Herzog. Trump will later leave for Egypt, where he will co-host a Gaza Peace Summit with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The US President is in Tel Aviv right now. This as the world has its eyes fixed on the upcoming peace summit in Egypt, which is aimed at formalizing the Gaza ceasefire deal. This visit is supposed to underscore Washington's push to anchor Middle Eastern diplomacy. Israel has released all 20 living hostages. The first was a batch of 7, then we saw the release of 13 other living hostages. Families and friends of hostages broke out into wild cheers as Israel announced that the hostages were in the hands of the Red Cross. This is our continuing coverage of all the developments coming in from West Asia today. All 20 living hostages have been released by Hamas after 2 years of captivity. Hamas has released all 20 Israeli hostages held in Gaza, and Israeli public radio is reporting that a second group of 13 Israeli hostages have been released to the Red Cross. Earlier, the 7 of the 20 surviving Israeli hostages have been released by the first batch. In the first batch, then we saw the release of another 13. In Tel Aviv, hundreds of people have been gathered in the hostages square. They erupted in joy as news broke out of the release of hostages. As you would recall, on the 7th of October 2023, Hamas had seized 251 hostages during an unprecedented attack on Israel. All but 47 of the hostages were freed in the earlier ceasefire deals. Only 20 of these are expected to be alive. Hamas will also release the remains of the others. Israel also began releasing around 2,000 detainees in exchange. Among the prisoners to be released, 250 are security detainees, including many convicted of killing Israelis. About 1,700 were detained by the Israeli army in Gaza during the war. US President Donald Trump too is in Israel. He was greeted with the red carpet at the Ben Gurion Airport by Netanyahu and President Isaac Herzog. Trump is here to showcase the United States West Asia diplomacy that he says has helped bring an end to this 2-year-long war. Trump will later travel to Egypt. All eyes on what will happen in Egypt, what the outcome of that peace summit is going to be, where he is expected to co-host a Gaza peace summit with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Hamas, as of now, this is the latest that we have. Hamas has now released all 20 living hostages. Now, the Egypt Peace Summit today is expected to see world leaders at least attempt to finalize an agreement aimed at ending the war in Gaza As you know, Trump has said that the war in Gaza is over. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas will also be attending this international summit in Egypt. He was invited by the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who is leading this event in Sharm el-Sheikh alongside Donald Trump. Leaders from over 20 countries are expected to attend, including UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Of course, when we talk about the peace summit, if we were to just contrast that with Trump's 20-point peace plan, and we were discussing this with the experts on the show earlier as well, there's a lot that still remains unanswered. There's clarity needed on a lot of points which were not a part of this 20-point peace plan. The biggest of them, of course, being the Palestinian statehood. When we speak of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas attending this international summit, there may be some hope that this leaves open the possibility for a role of a Palestinian authority after it carries out reforms, though Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has previously as well rejected its involvement.
Mr. President, Amir Ohana, Speaker of the Knesset. Yes. My partner alone.
Now Donald Trump.
Welcome to Jerusalem.
These
Welcome
are
to
the live
Knesset.
visuals that we're getting right
Longing
now.
for this day. It's a great honor. Thank you. It's our honor and pleasure. Thank you very much. You guys know each other. We know each other. Good. Yes, please. This way, Mr. President.
Okay, still. Video.
Let's start with one here. Let's look here first.
Now this one.
Then here.
This one, Avi.
And please here. Let's try again. Alone.
Now here, please, to Avi, everyone. And White House photographer, please.
Daniel.
אוקיי, עכשיו על הספר?
רגע, הראש מותיק.
להסתכל על הספר. להסתכל על הספר.
נועם, טיפה את היד השם. כן? אתה בסדר? היד.
Amen to that.
We'll be here and then everyone should fall back. Danny, you okay?
I'm perfect.
You want to lift things? I'm good. Well done. Yes, sir.
Amen to that, Mr. President. Thank you.
Don't fall yet. Come on.
אתה מלחיץ פה את כולם. אל תיכנס.
Thank you very much. Move this way. I everyone move. Thank you.
Sorry. You're all good. You're coming. Cameras.
Let the first lady. Daniel. White House count. Now here, please, to Avi, everyone. And White House photographer, please.
Daniel?
All right, and there you have Donald Trump, who is in Israel. There you can see him with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Donald Trump is expected to address the Israeli parliament as well. And you know that today is a big day, one, because 20 hostages have already been released. Also now the next major hurdle, and that remains the peace summit in Egypt, which everyone will be closely watching to see what sort of solutions can come out of this. As of now, what we do know and what we have discussed with a lot of the experts on the show as well is that there's a lot that still remains to be discussed, a lot of solutions that are still not in the works as of now. We are seeing a ceasefire, and there is jubilation in Israel as well with the return of all the Israeli hostages that have come back. However, the question of Hamas rearming, what goes on going forward, the Palestinian Authority, and of course the major question of statehood, that remains to be seen how things will pan out on that front. Trump did say, however, that the United States is aware that Hamas is rearming in Gaza and claimed that the group had been given US approval to do so for a period of time. And this was when he was asked on board Air Force One before his arrival in Israel about reports if Hamas was rearming. So of course that leaves a lot still that needs to be discussed and a lot that people still seek clarity on. Donald Trump has also praised Qatar for its role in helping secure the Gaza agreement. He said that Qataris really helped us with this deal. So EU as well is also expected to resume Rafah border control mission. The European Union will resume its monitoring mission at the border crossing between Gaza and Egypt. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas had said so on X. Securing peace in Gaza will be extraordinarily complex. Of course, that remains to be seen. The EU stands ready to do its part. On Wednesday, we will restart a civilian mission to monitor the border crossing between Gaza and Egypt. All eyes are on Gaza right now as Israeli captives were released. On ground, how much does the needle move here when it comes to securing true peace on ground and a viable and sustainable solution? That is something that still remains to be seen. These are the live visuals that we are getting right now. Hamas has released now all 20 Israeli hostages, those alive who were held in Gaza for 2 years. An Israeli public radio reported that the second group consisted of the 13 remaining Israeli hostages who were released to the Red Cross. Earlier, we saw a batch of 7 of the 20 surviving Israeli hostages released in this first batch. Hundreds of people were gathered in the hostages' square, erupted in joy as news broke out of their release. These are the visuals that we're getting right now. We just saw Donald Trump there as well, who is expected to speak at the Knesset in a short while from now. Israel has also begun releasing around 20,000 detainees in exchange. Among the prisoners to be released, 250 are security detainees, including many who were convicted of killing Israelis. About 1,700 were detained by the Israeli army in Gaza during the war. Donald Trump, as you know, as you can see on your screens right now as well, is in Israel. He was greeted with a red carpet welcome at the Ben Gurion airport by Netanyahu and Isaac Herzog. Trump is later expected to head to Egypt, where he will be co-hosting a Gaza peace summit with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
Start with one here. Let's go here first.
Trump, as of now, is at Israel's Knesset. The US president is expected to address Israel's parliament in a short while from now, where he was greeted by Netanyahu. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer is also expected to urge world leaders to seize the momentum of the ceasefire agreement to secure lasting peace in Gaza. He will, of course, be attending the summit later in Sharm el-Sheikh today. Of course, as this happens, lots of reactions are pouring in from different political aisles. We also heard that the European Union will resume its monitoring mission at the border crossing between Gaza and Egypt. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said securing peace in Gaza will be extraordinarily complex. The EU stands ready to do its part. On Wednesday, it will restart a civilian mission to monitor the border crossing between Gaza and Egypt. This is the statement that we've got from them. We're also hearing that British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is expected to urge world leaders to seize this momentum of a ceasefire and secure a lasting peace in Gaza.
Amen to that, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right, and these are the visuals from Israel's Knesset, where Donald Trump is expected to address the parliament in Israel in a short while from now. We are going to be getting you that address, of course, and we will be tracking all the developments later in the day. Donald Trump is expected to co-host a Gaza Peace Summit in Egypt with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
Now here, please, to Avi, everyone. And White House photographer, please.
Daniel?
As you know now, all 20 live hostages were released by Hamas, first in a batch of 7, then 13. Those 2 batches of hostages have been handed over to the Red Cross. Thousands gathered in Israel's hostages square as well. Hamas seized 251 hostages, as you would recall, on the 7th of October 2 years ago in 2023 during the unprecedented attack on Israel. All but 47 of the hostages were freed in earlier of the truce. Only 20 of them are expected to be alive, those who have now been released and handed over to the Red Cross, as per what we're hearing. This was as per an Israeli public radio that reported that the second group of 13 Israeli hostages had come back as well. Hamas is also expected to release the remains of the others. Israel too has begun releasing around 2,000 detainees in exchange. Among the prisoners to be released, 250 were security detainees, including many convicted of killing Israelis. About 1,700 were detained by the Israeli army in Gaza during the war. US President Donald Trump has arrived in Israel. He was greeted on the red carpet at Ben Gurion Airport with Netanyahu, and these are the visuals that we're getting right now from Israel's Knesset, where US President Donald Trump is expected to address the Israeli parliament in a few moments from now.
And White House photographer, please.
Daniel?
Of course, we're also hearing that Trump may also make a stop at the hostages square and meet the Israeli hostages who have now been released from captivity in person. However, of course, that remains to be seen, and we'll get you all the developments on that front as and when we have more information with regards to that. However, right now we're expecting Trump to address the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. He is there already. He was greeted there by Israeli officials, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And we are expecting that address in a short while from now.
Amen to that.
We'll be here in the
I'm perfect.
For those just joining us, this is our continuous coverage from West Asia. Hamas has released all 20 Israeli hostages held in Gaza. An Israeli public radio reported a second group of 13 Israeli hostages. These are the visuals from Tel Aviv. As you can see, people waiting, anticipating the return of all hostages with bated breath there. You can see the emotions and the anticipation on the faces of people who have joined in Hostages Square, waiting for their loved ones, waiting for friends and family, waiting there to support all those who have come back after 2 years of Hamas captivity. Chants and songs and cheers as well as tears that broke out here. You can see the looks on the faces of the people here waiting with bated breath for their family members, for their friends whom they haven't seen in 2 years. All 20 hostages have been handed over to the Red Cross. Hundreds of people have been gathered on Hostages Square, erupted in joy as news broke out of the release of all 20 alive hostages. All right, and this is our continuing coverage from all that's happening in West Asia today. We'll continue to bring you all the developments. With that, it's time for a wrap on this edition of the News Bulletin. News and updates as well as all of this coverage will continue on the other side on WION World is One. Do stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
All
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Well, hello and welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Jyotsna Kumar. Let's begin with the headlines.
להתראות חבר, מחזיקים אצבעות.
Hundreds erupt in cheers, tears and songs at Tel Aviv's Hostages Square as news broke that the first hostages have been released from 2 years of captivity in Gaza. Hamas now has released all 20 live hostages.
שאנחנו בדקות הקרובות נשמע על חתימה של רכבי הצו האדום לצה"ל והעברת העבוד. להתראות חבר, מחזיקים את זה.
U.S. President Donald Trump signs visitors' book at the Israeli Parliament. He will be addressing the Knesset in a short while from now, before proceeding for the Gaza Peace Summit in Cairo. Nepali student Bipin Joshi not in the list of 20 hostages freed under U.S. brokered ceasefire. Nepal's ambassador to Israel has confirmed the news. The family has been informed. Efforts to trace the body is on. Nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners have been released as part of the ceasefire deal. Some 1,700 are those who were detained during Israel's onslaught in Gaza. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas will attend the Gaza Peace Summit in Cairo later today, says French President Emmanuel Macron. U.S. President Donald Trump and Egypt's Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will co-chair the meet. 20 world leaders will be present. And we continue our coverage from West Asia with breaking news just coming in. Hamas has released 20 Israeli hostages held in Gaza, all 20 of them. And Israeli public radio is reporting a second group of 13 Israeli hostages have been released to Red Cross. Now, earlier, the 7 of the 20 surviving Israeli hostages had been released in the first batch. In Tel Aviv, meanwhile, hundreds of people gathered at the hostages square erupted in joy as the news broke of the first releases. Now, on October 7, 2023, Hamas seized 251 hostages during an unprecedented attack on Israel. And all but 47 of the hostages were freed in earlier truces. Now, only 20 of these are expected to be alive, and 20 have been released. Hamas will also release the remains of the others soon. Now, Israel has also begun releasing around 2,000 detainees in exchange. Now, among the prisoners to be released, 250 are security detainees, including many convicted of killing Israelis. About 1,700 were detained by the Israeli army in Gaza during the war. U.S. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, has arrived in Israel. He was greeted on the red carpet at Ben Gurion Airport by Netanyahu and President Isaac Herzog. Now, he will be addressing the Knesset and will later travel to Egypt, where he will co-host a Gaza Peace Summit with his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Now, of course, Trump's visit to Israel will include meetings with the families of the hostages and with Netanyahu and a speech at the Knesset in Jerusalem very soon. Now, he was earlier formally invited to address the Israeli parliament by Knesset Speaker. Now, for people just coming in, we have some breaking news just coming in. Hamas has released all 20 of the Israeli hostages held in Gaza. Now, an Israeli public radio is reporting a second group of 13 Israeli hostages that have been released to Red Cross. Now, Red Cross will be delivering them to IDF, who will further take them to hospitals for treatment and meeting with the families. Earlier, the 7 of the 20 surviving Israeli hostages have been released in the first batch. In Tel Aviv, meanwhile, hundreds of people gathered on the hostages square erupted in joy as news broke of the first releases. Now, on October 7, 2023, Hamas had seized 251 hostages during an unprecedented attack on Israel, which led to the whole Israel-Hamas war. Now, all but 47 of the hostages were freed in earlier truces. Only 20 of these were expected to be alive, and 20 have been released. Hamas will soon also be releasing the remains of the others. Israel has also begun releasing around 2,000 detainees in exchange. Now, among the prisoners to be released, 250 are security detainees that include many who have been convicted of killing Israelis. About 1,700 were detained by the Israeli army in Gaza during the war. Meanwhile, you can also see on your screens in the Knesset is preparing for Trump to address the parliament. U.S. President Donald Trump has indeed arrived in Israel. He was greeted on the red carpet at Ben Gurion Airport by Netanyahu and President Isaac Herzog. After addressing Knesset, he is also expected to meet the hostages. and the families of the hostages, and then will later travel to Egypt, where he will be co-hosting a Gaza Peace Summit with his Egyptian counterpart, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Now, hundreds erupted in cheers, tears, and songs at Tel Aviv's Hostages Square as the news did break out of the first hostages had been released from 2 years of captivity in Gaza. And Hamas, as of now, has released all the 20 living hostages. Meanwhile, when Trump arrived at the Knesset, he had earlier signed a visitor's book at the Israel parliament. He will soon be addressing the Knesset in a short while from now, before proceeding for a Gaza Peace Summit in Cairo. In other news, a Nepali student, Bipin Joshi, who was not included in the list of 20 hostages freed under U.S. brokered ceasefire, and Nepal's ambassador to Israel has confirmed the news that the family has been informed, and efforts are now on to trace the body. Meanwhile, nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners were released as part of the ceasefire deal. Now, some 1,700 are those who were detained during Israel's onslaught in Gaza. We also know that Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas will be attending the Gaza Peace Summit in Cairo later today. And this is according to French President Emmanuel Macron, who had earlier thanked and was happy about the release of the 20 hostages. U.S. President Donald Trump and Egypt's Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will be co-chairing the meet, where 20 leaders from around the world, including UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, will also be present. And people who are just joining in, Hamas has released all the 20 Israeli hostages held in Gaza. Now, an Israeli public radio had reported a second group of 13 Israeli hostages have been released to Red Cross. Now, the Red Cross will be handing over the remaining 13 Israeli hostages to the IDF, who will then be taking them to hospitals for treatment, and they will be meeting their family members. And later, U.S. President Donald Trump, who has arrived in Israel, will also be meeting with the hostages. He is very soon expected to address the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. In Tel Aviv, meanwhile, the visuals that you see on the screens are from Gaza, where the Gazans are now waiting for the Palestinian prisoners to be detained. We know that about 2,000 are to be released in Gaza. And this in exchange for the 20 hostages who have been, according to Israeli public radio, released so far. Now, on October 7, 2023, Hamas had seized 251 hostages during an unprecedented attack on Israel, and all but 47 of the hostages were freed in earlier truces. Only 20 of these were expected to be alive, and 20 have been now released. Hamas will now be also be releasing the remains of the others. Now, nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners, on the other hand, and detainees in Israel will also be freed as part of the first crucial phase of U.S. brokered ceasefire deal. Hundreds of people in Gaza are awaiting of the releases as part of the first phase. Now, 250 Palestinian prisoners serving life sentences will also be released. Now, earlier, Israeli military said that the first group of 7 returned hostages had arrived at the Reim military facility, where they had undergone initial medical evaluation and had also reunited with their families. Now, on your screens that you see are visuals from Gaza, and on the opposite side from Israel, where in Israel, the Knesset is waiting for Donald Trump's address, while in Khan Younis, Gazans are waiting for the prisoners to be released, the Palestinian prisoners who were detained after the October 7 attack 2023. Now, IDF statement had earlier said that the released hostages were accompanied by personnel from the Israeli Defense Forces, Manpower Directorate, and IDF medical teams at the reception point in southern Israel. The Red Cross is in position in Gaza to facilitate a second transfer of the hostages, which have now been done. from Hamas to the Israeli military, which will then transfer them into Israel. Now, of course, there are multiple sticking points when it comes to what happens after the first phase is over. First phase, which has now concluded, or rather is in motion as well, with the remains of the remaining Israeli hostages to be released soon. All right, for people just joining in, Hamas has now released all of the 20 Israeli hostages that were held in Gaza for the past 2 years. And Israeli public radio had reported a second group of 13 Israeli hostages have been released to Red Cross. Now, the Red Cross will be delivering these hostages to IDF, who will then be taking them into Israel. Now, for more on this, we are now being joined live by Mohammed Najib. He is a journalist, a war correspondent, and security analyst. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, of course, the first thing I would like you to tell us about what kind of reactions have we been getting from the Gazan region? Of course, we know there's jubilant cries and happiness in Israel. How are the Gazans reacting?
Yes, first of all, the Gazans are happy that the war stopped after 2 years of humanitarian sufferance. And today also there are some 170 trucks loaded of humanitarian aids, food and medicine allowed to enter to the Gaza Strip so the Palestinian Gaza can get some relief. And their sons, beloved sons, the Israeli jails will be freed today and they will receive them. And despite some will be deported to Egypt, but majority will remain in Gaza, and that's another sign of hope. And also the Gazan people says, as Trump arrives to Israel, it's a sign that he will give guarantees. He confirmed the war ended, this is the end of the war. So the Palestinians were concerned that after Israel take its hostages and their bodies, then they can resume the war. But Trump confirmation today as he arrived to Israel, and after that the war is finished, give them a strong hope. So they are double joy in Gaza with everything, the end of the war, Trump confirmation, the free for the prisoners, the entry of the food and humanitarian aids, all of the things together works at this historical day.
I'm sure absolutely receiving such news would definitely bring happiness. Now, there are likely to be multiple points of contention during the negotiations over later phases of the deal. We know that first, of course, has been done, and now that Hamas has released all 20 of them, what happens to Hamas now? We know that previously they had refused to lay down its weapons, saying it would only do so once a Palestinian state has been established. Looking at the talks that are going to happen in Egypt, how do you think the role of Hamas would now look like in the region?
As you know, the Trump proposal wasn't ideal for Hamas, and they had to answer yes or no, and they said yes. But so they hope that the negotiators, the mediators, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, will make some improvement in the conditions that sit there. So first of all, that was saying there's no role for the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. Now they invited the President Abbas at the last second, and he didn't. From Ramallah to Amman and into Sharm el-Sheikh to attend the summit in Egypt today. And this is a significant development. And also Hamas hopes that the mediators will convince the Americans as well as the Israelis to let some improvement in that. And yes, Hamas says they will lay their weapons when there is a Palestinian independent state. Egypt said, we can keep your weapons as a deposit by the Egypt. So they will find a solution. It's not easy. It's very complicated negotiations and the process. But there is a determination. On today's summit in Sharm el-Sheikh with the world leaders, 20 world leaders, would confirm on that and also will give confidence. Because right now, both Hamas and Israel don't trust each other. They don't trust, they have bad intentions. They intentions about each other's side. So now today's meeting will give a more confirmation and the comfort to continue the negotiations. And despite the difficulties, they could overcome it and reach a permanent stability.
Absolutely, and I was just going to come to that point. Of course, it looks like everything has been settled, but how do you look at the future considering the security perimeters? We know that when it comes to security, when this talk is happening, Israel is not part of this summit. We know that ally U.S. is, but we don't see Israel's participation in those talks. How likely is Netanyahu to agree to any talk that might take place? And on the other hand, we know the Palestinian president might be there. Do you think that Hamas would agree to, a Palestinian head who's going there to address their issue?
Also, Hamas is not attending the summit, not only Netanyahu, but there is the Americans who represent Israel in those talks and in those issues and standing supportive for them. And about security, they are also a significant development. They're talking about 200 Palestinian police who were trained in Egypt recently will be deployed and Rafah crossing borders between Gaza and Egypt. And today I learned that the European Union also will send another 200 observers to be at the Rafah crossing. So they are about to coming closer to find the security solutions. And also the 2 American soldiers who said they will come to stabilize the agreements. So the Americans will put all of their weight in this issue, and the Israelis cannot say no to the Americans, the Arabs cannot say no to the Americans, as well as Hamas cannot say no to the Americans. So I think as long as President Trump is there, the things will work. The only guarantee is the President Trump. The Palestinians were concerned that the President Trump will be there in the first phase, but after they bring back the hostages and the bodies, then he will leave the negotiators to test themselves on the table, and that was the concern. But now it seems that President Trump is determined to walk the extra mile until the end, and I think this is the strongest guarantee for all parties.
Right, and considering, I would like you to also talk about the fact that, there is always this whole topic about who will now not rule, but of course take a look at who's going to be looking at the position of Gaza now. Somehow the Palestinian Authority or the foreign forces or Hamas will play any role. Will that likely cause any kind of conflict, or maybe I will take the liberty to say civil war in Gaza?
Yes, it's about capabilities and willingness to do. During the past 2 years, there is a lot of chaos, and the security system collapsed, and there is a vacuum, there is groups, there is tribes and families, militias, there is Hamas, and talk about Arab forces to come there, but also they want to rehabilitate the Palestinian Authority security. But from the political side, they talk about technocrat government or administration that will be headed by Tony Blair, and the Palestinian Authority will be representing that, because the Palestinian Authority is the legitimate body that they are accepted by the whole world to do that. I am sure, and everyone knows, that if Hamas remains there, no one will pay $1 for the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, and this is not what Hamas wants, or the 2 million Palestinians in Gaza wants, or the Arabs also. So there is a pressure on Hamas to be aside by the Arabs, by the Muslim country, by the mediators, by the Israelis, the Americans, the Palestinian Authority also. And they want to engage the Palestinian Authority as much as possible. But also there are Arab countries who will take responsibility there, and they talk about also Arab security forces could be there in the Gaza to maintain security until the requalification of the Palestinian security forces to be able to deploy there. And the role is very difficult also. It will be like maintain security and providing relief, unless the Americans allow the UNRWA and United Nations to handle the circulation of the relief supplies to the 2 million Palestinians in Gaza.
Right, and that being said, Trump has successfully pressured Netanyahu into accepting this week's hostage phase-in and stuff. But we did hear Netanyahu say before that, he had warned last night of the military campaign. He said that it's not over. How likely do you think Trump will be able to convince Netanyahu on the other parts going forward?
Netanyahu is saying something to his strong opponents, Smotrich and Ben Gvir, and to his Likud camp, and to the Israeli street, and to the Americans. So he has to use languages because Netanyahu it wasn't Netanyahu's choice to end the war. He was forced by Trump to end the war, and he has to maintain his coalition, not to collapse and to go to earlier elections. So he has to give them some signs, some hopes. You can have free hand in the West Bank to do whatever you want, expand settlement, but let us continue this. We'll be able to come back and do the job in Gaza. If Hamas committed a mistake, sometimes he bet that Hamas will reject Trump's proposal, but he's surprised when Hamas said yes to Trump's proposal. So he's keep maneuvering. He was doing that for 2 years, so it's not expected that he will finish his maneuvering tactics at the moment. But what is clear is that Trump all the time confirms, and he is trustworthy by the people here. And when he said the war has come to its end, the people believe him in the Palestinian side as well as in the Israeli side, in the Arab sides, even by Hamas. So he has credibility now. And Trump has the upper hand over Netanyahu as Hamas and all the parties in the region. So as long as Trump is present there and he wants things to happen, it will happen. No one can say no to Trump.
Absolutely, that's a very strong point from you, definitely. Now, so how about the European forces? Like we talked about the foreign forces that might come into play when it comes to post-Gaza war. What kind of roles do you think these countries like France or UK are playing? Because they, of course, have supported two-state solution, right? And we know that Netanyahu does not really go for that. Israel, again, is not part of these talks. How do you think these talks will play out, and how these European countries will be playing a part in that?
Yeah, there's only one crossing borders links the Gaza Strip to Egypt. And before the war, before 2007, the EU BAM forces were deployed at the Rafah crossing borders. And now they are ready to deploy them on Wednesday. So after 2 days, and that's a significant development that the European Union will play a strong role in Gaza. And they also said that they want to play a strong role in Gaza. And now Emmanuel Macron, the French president, also will attend the Sharm el-Sheikh summit today. And France is supportive of the two-state solution and of the Gaza Strip to end the war. So I think France will do every possible efforts and exert every possible efforts to make things happen on the ground, to maintain peace and stability, reconstruction of Gaza, and the qualification of the Palestinian security. And also the Palestinian Authority is ready to send its forces to be deployed in Gaza. But now they talk about the Rafah crossing borders, which will enable the people from Gaza to leave through Egypt, or the Palestinian of Gaza to come back from Egypt to the Gaza Strip. This is a significant point. Then it will be the issue of the internal security, how they will maintain that. Yesterday we saw Hamas forces, and Trump, he said he allowed them to do that temporarily until they found an alternative for them, and I think this works well right now.
Right.
Everyone was concerned more about the difficulties that might happen and might face in the Gaza, but since the signature of the agreement on last Thursday, right now, we see like a minimum problems happens. And even today, Hamas said that they are faithful to turn the bodies, and before that they turned the 20 hostages and time. So things work well on the ground.
Absolutely. Of course, the first thing we might be looking for is the restoration of Gaza, the aids, everything, of course, has to take time. But thank you so much for joining us on the show and giving us all the perspective.
Thank you.
And we will, of course, continue to cover West Asia region and the developments that have to come later in the day. Thank you so much for joining us. That's all in this bulletin. We'll be right back with more news and updates. Don't go anywhere.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching WION World is One with me, Jyotsa Kumar, and my colleague Rajni. Let's begin with the headlines. Hundreds erupt in cheers, tears, and songs at Tel Aviv's Hostages Square as news broke that the first hostages had been released from 2 years of captivity in Gaza. Hamas now has released all 20 live hostages. Nepali student Bipin Joshi not in the list of 20 hostages freed under US brokered ceasefire. Nepal's ambassador to Israel has confirmed the news. The family has been informed, efforts on to trace the body. U.S. President Donald Trump signs visitors' book at the Israel Parliament. He will be addressing the Knesset in a short while from now, before proceeding for the Gaza Peace Summit in Cairo. Nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners released as part of the ceasefire deal. Some 1,700 are those who were detained during Israel's onslaught in Gaza. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas will attend the Gaza Peace Summit in Cairo later today, says French President Emmanuel Macron. U.S. President Donald Trump and Egypt's Abdel Fattah el-Sisi will co-chair the meet. 20 world leaders will be present.
कि खैबर पख्तूनख्वा इमरान खान का है और यहाँ पर सिर्फ इमरान खान की चलेगी इंशाअल्लाह।
Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf's Sohail Afridi elected new Chief Minister of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Afridi thanks Imran Khan for giving opportunity to his tribe, assures Khan that KPK will remain a PTI bastion. We are continuing our coverage from West Asia. Hamas has released 20 Israeli hostages held in Gaza. An Israeli public radio is reporting a second group of 13 Israeli hostages have been released to Red Cross. Earlier, the 7 of 20 surviving Israeli hostages have been released in the first batch. In Tel Aviv, hundreds of people gathered on Hostages Square erupted in joy as news broke of the first releases. On October 7, 2023, Hamas seized 251 hostages during an unprecedented attack on Israel. All but 47 of the hostages were freed in earlier truces. Only 20 of these are expected to be alive. Hamas will also release the remains of the others. Israel has also begun releasing around 2,000 detainees in exchange. Among the prisoners to be released, 250 are security detainees, including many convicted of killing Israelis. About 1,700 were detained by the Israeli army in Gaza during the war. U.S. President Donald Trump has arrived in Israel. He was greeted on the red carpet at Ben Gurion Airport by Netanyahu and President Isaac Herzog. Trump will later travel to Egypt, where he will co-host a Gaza Peace Summit with his Egyptian counterpart, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Ahead of the U.S. President Trump's speech, of course, ahead of U.S. President Trump's speech at the Knesset, experts and analysts from across the world gave their analysis on the Gaza hostage release. Here are some experts.
Well, in a way, it shows you that it isn't military force that helped in rescuing the hostages. It is diplomatic negotiations. And in this case, certainly a lot of credit goes to President Trump for bringing the pressure on Israel to come back to the negotiating table. I'm hopeful that what we are witnessing today will bring us back to the path of some kind of a peace.
Momentous day, and Donald Trump will be getting a hero's welcome, really, in Israel for making this happen and for giving families relief after so long. But at the same time, there is an undercurrent of criticism. Back in January, there was a ceasefire that would have seen all the hostages released, but it fell apart largely due to changing political calculations on the part of Benjamin Netanyahu. So while Israelis are welcoming Trump's role, there's a lot of criticism of their own Prime Minister for not doing this deal earlier.
Fortunately, we've come to a happy end at the beginning, but this does not mean that the problem is solved. Why I'm saying this? Okay, the hostages were returned, and there were 80 in reality, but most of them are buried and that they are dead. So there are only 20 living, and they were all given to Israel. In return, from the Israeli prisons, there are unknown numbers of hostages who are waiting to be released by the Israelis and given to Hamas.
The Gazans are happy that the war stopped after 2 years of humanitarian sufferance. And today also there are some 170 trucks loaded of humanitarian aids, food and medicine allowed to enter to the Gaza Strip so the Palestinian Gaza can get some relief. And their sons, beloved sons, of the Israeli jails will be freed today and they will receive them. And despite some will be deported to Egypt, but majority will remain in Gaza, and that's another sign of hope.
All right, moving to other global news now. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf nominee Sohail Afridi has been elected the chief minister of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, even as opposition parties boycotted the election, terming it as unconstitutional. Now, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Assembly session was held today for the election of the chief minister, where the speaker announced Afridi's victory as leader of the House with 90 votes.
आपने जिस तरह मुझे, मेरी कौम को, कबाइलियों को, पख्तूनों को, पूरे पाकिस्तान को जो इज्जत बख्शी, जो शऊर दिया, जो बहादुरी उनमें डाली, तो मैं आपको ये यकीन दिलाता हूं कि खैबर पख्तूनख्वा इमरान खान का है और यहां पर सिर्फ इमरान खान की चलेगी इंशाअल्लाह।
This despite Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Governor Faiz Karim Kundi raising objection to outgoing CM Ali Amin Gandapur's resignation. He had returned the resignation letters dated 8th and 11th October, saying that the signatures on both the documents were inconsistent. He had asked Gandapur to visit the Governor House on 15th of October. Gandapur, however, through a post on social media, had said that both the documents bore his authentic signatures. Now, Gandapur announced last week that he was stepping down, making way for Imran Khan's choice, Sohail Afridi. The PTI confirmed the move on its official X account, adding that it was done in complete alignment with Khan's instructions. The decision was taken in light of a worsening terrorism situation in the northwestern province. The Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government had planned to move a no-confidence vote against Gandapur, but the idea was dropped after the governor's house confirmed the receipt of his resignation. The shakeup came after months of internal turmoil within the PTI, including a public feud between Gandapur and Imran Khan's sister, Alima Khan. The two traded allegations, with Gandapur accusing Alima of trying to divide the party, and Alima claiming he had told her brother that she was working with the establishment to hijack the PTI. The U.S. President Donald Trump has pledged to solve the latest escalation between Afghanistan and Pakistan, claiming that he is good at solving war. Earlier, Iran had expressed deep concern over the escalating tensions between the two neighbors, offering to mediate between the two countries to help restore peace and stability in the region. In a statement, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson voiced concern over the recent developments between Islamabad and Kabul, underscoring the importance of mutual respect for each country's territorial integrity and national sovereignty. Ismail Bakai also called for restraint and the immediate commencement of dialogue between the two sides to de-escalate tensions and resolve the differences through diplomatic means. Now, key border crossings between Pakistan and Afghanistan were closed on Sunday after fierce clashes that erupted overnight following what Taliban called retaliatory strikes near the Durand Line, which is a de facto border that separates both the countries. The Taliban accuses Islamabad of bombing Afghan capital, Kabul, and the southeastern Paktika last week. Pakistan, however, did not confirm it was behind the attacks, but called on Kabul to stop harboring the TTP terrorists on its soil. No multi-opposition alliance in Pakistan has asked the government to convene a parliament session over tensions with Afghanistan. It has urged that the issue be resolved through dialogue and understanding. The Taliban government's chief spokesman, Zabihullah Mujahid, was quoted by the Associated Press as saying that Afghan forces have captured 20 Pakistan army posts. He said it has killed 58 Pakistani soldiers in border operations.
Our Mujahideen captured more than 20 posts and 58 Pakistani soldiers were killed, while around 30 were injured. Up to 9 Mujahideen were martyred and we have 16 to 18 wounded. We have also seized their arms and military equipment as well.
However, Pakistan's army gave far lower casualty figures, saying 23 of its troops were killed. It said 200 of the Taliban fighters were killed in the attack. The attacks were halted after mediation from Qatar and Saudi Arabia, but Taliban issued a stern warning to Pakistan, saying it will respond if Pakistan violates Afghanistan's territorial integrity. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif vowed a strong and effective response to future aggression. Now, European Union member countries have begun rolling out a new entry and exit system at blocs' external borders. Now, the new electronic register is meant to record non-EU nationals' data. The system was first deployed on Sunday, starting with borders of Croatia. Now, the entry-exit system will register the person's name, travel document data, biometric data, and the date and place of entry or exit in what EU calls full compliance of fundamental rights and data protection. Now, the new system will help identify non-EU nationals traveling for a short stay and will also record any refusals of entry. It will aid in tackling identity fraud and preventing illegal migration. Amid political pressure in some EU countries to take a tougher stance.
Starting today, a new entry and exit system has been introduced. It will apply to citizens of third countries who do not hold permanent residence, a long-term D visa, or a local border traffic permit for staying in the EU.
Non-EU citizens will have to register their personal details when they first enter the Schengen area. Now, this includes all EU member countries apart from Ireland and Cyprus, but including Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein. Now, the subsequent journeys then will only require facial biometric verification. At EU member Croatia's land border with Serbia, travelers said the system caused little disruption.
There are 5 open lanes, so it took us about 20 minutes waiting in line, and for each of us, around 2 minutes to complete the procedure in total.
About 29 European countries will be introducing the new entry-exit system gradually or in full at their external borders over a period of next 6 months. The bloc expects to complete the implementation of EES by April 2026. Replacing the current system of manual stamping of passports, which does not allow an automatic detection of overstayers. With new system in place, EU hopes to protect the security of everyone living in or traveling to Europe. In addition to this, it will allow a wider use of automated border control and self-service systems. The European Commission first presented the proposal for EES in April 2016 as part of the revised Smart Borders package. The EES regulation, along with Shenzhen Border Code, entered into force in December 2017. The EU had set 12th October 2025 as the launch date for the start of EES operations. Now, the date for former French President Nicolas Sarkozy's imprisonment will be set later today. And this days after he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for criminal conspiracy in a scheme to finance his winning 2007 campaign with funds from Libya. Now, Sarkozy, who is now 70 years of age, says he is innocent and denounces the verdict as a scandal. He has filed an appeal. In a surprise decision, the Paris court said prison sentence, which would otherwise have been suspended on appeal, is effective immediately. The court said Sarkozy must be incarcerated without delay, citing the seriousness of the disruption to public order caused by the offense. The court says Sarkozy was given 18 days since the ruling to organize his professional life before his summoning by the National Financial Prosecutor's Office to set a date for incarceration. Sarkozy, who served as France's president 2007 to 2012, has retired from active politics for years, but remains very influential, especially in conservative circles. The former president's supporters criticize the ruling because Sarkozy, since he appealed, is presumed to be innocent in accordance to the French law. However, his is not a case in isolation. Far-right leader Marine Le Pen was sentenced in March to a 5-year ban on running for public office for embezzling EU funds, also taking effect immediately despite her appeal. Now, the court says Sarkozy, as a presidential candidate and interior minister, used his position to prepare for corruption at the highest level from 2005 to 2007 to finance his presidential campaign with funds from Libya, which was back then led by longtime ruler Muammar Gaddafi. The panel of 3 judges stated that Sarkozy's closest associates held secret meetings in 2005 with Gaddafi's brother-in-law, an intelligence chief, despite the fact that he was convicted of acts of terrorism committed mostly against French and European citizens. In India, the stalemate over the autopsy of Haryana IPS officer Y. Puran Kumar continues 6 days after his alleged suicide at his Chandigarh residence. His family has refused consent for the post-mortem and cremation until their demands are met. The officer's wife, senior IAS officer Amneet P. Kumar, is at the center of efforts by the Haryana government to resolve the impasse. Meanwhile, Chandigarh police have urged her to identify the body to expedite the post-mortem essential for a speedy investigation. A 31-member committee formed to seek justice for Kumar's family has given a 48-hour ultimatum to the Haryana government and Chandigarh administration to remove state police chief. The committee is demanding strict action against the state police chief and the former superintendent of police of Rohtak, both named in Kumar's alleged suicide note. And this is for allegedly harassing him and subjecting him to caste-based discrimination. Now, in response, the Rohtak SP was transferred, and Haryana Social Justice Minister assured that the entire state cabinet supports the family and is committed to a thorough probe. The Haryana governor also met the family to express condolences, while political leaders from various parties visited Kumar's home to offer support. Now, the investigation is ongoing, with Chandigarh police special team seeking relevant documents from Haryana and conducting inquiries in Rohtak. Now, trade tensions between the U.S. and China are heating up again, just as Beijing's export engine starts to fire back to life. But despite the war of words, China's trade numbers are looking strong. Now, let's take a look at the fresh data. Now, as per China's custom data, outbound shipments from the world's second largest economy rose an annual 8.3% last month, rebounding from August's low and beating forecasts. On the other hand, imports grew 7.4%, their fastest pace since April 2024, against a 1.3% gain a month prior, with the trade surplus falling to about $90 billion. Analysts say Beijing is likely to roll out more stimulus to keep exports on track and hit its 5% growth target. Meanwhile, tensions flared again after President Trump threatened an additional 100% levy on Chinese goods, while Beijing expanded restrictions on rare earth exports and blacklisted a U.S. chip consultancy. Both sides have also threatened new port fees on each other's ships, which is set to take effect on October 14th. The two superpowers appear to be struggling to chart a path beyond their current tariff truce, a 90-day pause from August 11th that ends around November 9th. Now, as the U.S. imposes fresh restrictions, officials say Chinese manufacturers are reportedly finding new markets, especially in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Meanwhile, the U.S. now accounts for less than 10% of China's exports, down from about 17% 5 years ago. So while China's export engine is running hot for now, the real test will come if this new round of trade tensions turns into another full-blown war. Now, after enjoying a grand premiere at the Venice Film Festival, George Clooney and Adam Sandler arrived in London for the premiere of their movie, J. Kelly. In the movie, two-time Oscar winner George Clooney channels the complexities of fame in his new comedy drama, J. Kelly. Clooney stars as a titular J. Kelly, an aging global star. While the actor drew from his own life experiences, he emphasized the distinction between himself and the character.
It's personal, but I mean, I'm not as unhappy as that guy. Do you know what I mean? I have a family that I love and kids who I think still love me. They're 8. There's time to screw it up. And I have friends that I don't pay. You know what I mean? And I have, my father and I are close still. So I don't, there's an awful lot that's different than who I am. There are elements certainly about sort of the experience that I've had, but not so many regrets.
Directed by acclaimed U.S. filmmaker Noah Baumbach, who co-wrote the screenplay with British actor Emily Mortimer, J. Kelly follows the star as he travels to Europe with a large entourage. Baumbach, known for films like Marriage Story and White Noise, and who co-wrote the smash hit Barbie, said he aimed to create a movie about an actor in crisis. Sandler, whose character takes stock of his own life during the trip, echoed the sentiment of a life in the demanding movie industry. All right, with that, we call a wrap to this bulletin. Don't go anywhere. News and updates follow on the other side. You're watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Him Korsura and here's a look at all the top stories that we're tracking for you right now.
להתראות חבר, מחזיקים אצבעות.
Hundreds erupted cheers, tears and songs at Tel Aviv's hostage square as news broke that the first hostages had been released from 2 years of captivity in Gaza. Hamas has now released all 20 live hostages. Nepali student Bipin Joshi not in the list of 20 hostages freed under US brokered ceasefire. Nepal's ambassador to Israel has confirmed the news. The family has been informed efforts on to trace the body. US President Donald Trump signs visitors' book at the Israel Parliament. He will be addressing the Knesset in a short while from now before proceeding for the Gaza summit in Cairo. Nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners released as part of the ceasefire deal. Some 1,700 those who were detained during Israel's onslaught in Gaza. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas will attend the Gaza Peace Summit in Cairo later today, says French President Emmanuel Macron. US President Donald Trump and Egypt's Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will co-chair the meet. 20 world leaders to be present.
कि खैबर पख्तूनख्वा इमरान खान का है और यहाँ पर सिर्फ इमरान खान की चलेगी इंशाल्लाह।
Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Sohail Afridi, elected new Chief Minister of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Afridi thanks Imran Khan for giving the opportunity to his tribe, assures Khan that KPK will remain in PTI, a PTI bastion. Household debt in the UK dips to a 23-year low, a rare silver lining amid economic gloom. Lower household debt could help people spend more on non-essential items. That raised hopes of stronger consumer spending and a boost to the economy. Now, Hamas has released the last 20 surviving Israeli hostages in Gaza. The hostages were released as the first phase of a ceasefire agreement, as US President Donald Trump and other world leaders geared up for a summit on Gaza. The hostages were released in two batches of 7 and 13. The hostages were first handed over to the Red Cross and then to the IDF. This release means that for the first time since 2023, 7th of October, there are no living hostages in Gaza. Under the ceasefire agreement, Hamas is also due to return the bodies of 27 hostages who died or were killed in captivity, as well as the remains of a soldier in 2004. Remains of a soldier who died during a previous Gaza conflict. The families of some of the hostages headed to the Rime base near the Gaza border in Israel in preparation for their loved ones' release.
להתראות חבר, מחזיקים אצבעות.
Thousands of people cheered, hugged and wept in Tel Aviv's Hostages Square as they watched convoys carrying Israeli hostages held captive in Gaza make their way back to home soil. The crowds in Tel Aviv were heard chanting, "Thank you, Trump," as the first convoy carrying Israeli hostages crossed over into realm of Israeli territory.
הציפייה הזאת וההמתנה הזאת. בוא נעשה רגע תמונת מצב ברגע זה. שאנחנו בדקות הקרובות נשמע על החבירה של רכבי הצלב האדום לצה"ל והעברת
In Gaza too, the ceasefire has brought relief, but with much of the territory flattened by war, the road to recovery remains long. Ahead of the release, people gathered at Nasser Hospital in Gaza's Khan Yunis, where a stage and chairs had been laid out to welcome returning Palestinian prisoners. The release are part of a ceasefire agreement brokered by Trump, with Israel due in return to free nearly 2,000 detainees held in its jails in exchange. On the 7th of October 2023, militant seized 251 hostages during Hamas's unprecedented attack on Israel, which led to the deaths of 1,219 people, most of them civilians. All but 47 of those hostages were freed earlier. Israel's response to the attack has killed nearly 68,000 people, this as per figure by Gaza officials. So this is where things stand at the moment. Hamas has released all 20 alive hostages. They were released in two batches, one of 7, one of 13. Donald Trump, other world leaders are also gearing up for the summit on Gaza in Egypt. The hostages were released earlier in the day and were handed over to the Red Cross and then to the IDF. This release means that for the first time since the 7th of October, 2 years ago, that's 2023, there are no living hostages in Gaza. Under the ceasefire agreement, Hamas is also due to return the bodies of 27 hostages who died or were killed in captivity, as well as remains of a soldier killed in 2014 during a previous Gaza conflict. The families of some of the Gaza hostages headed to the Rime base near the Gaza border in preparation for the release of their loved ones. Thousands of people cheered, hugged and wept in Tel Aviv's hostages square as they watched convoys carrying Israeli hostages held captive in Gaza make their way back on home soil. They could be heard chanting "Thank you, Trump" as the first convoy carrying Israeli hostages crossed over into rim of Israeli territory. In Gaza too, the ceasefire has brought relief, but with much of the territory flattened by war, the road to recovery remains long. Ahead of the release, people gathered in Nasser Hospital in Gaza's Khan Yunis, where a stage and chairs had been laid out to welcome returning Palestinian prisoners. The release is part of a ceasefire agreement brokered by President Trump, with Israel due in return to free nearly 2,000 detainees held in jails in exchange. And we also have breaking news that's just coming in. In a call apparently brokered by US President Donald Trump, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke on the phone with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Media outlet Channel 12 is reporting that during the call, Trump was listening in. Netanyahu accepted an invitation by the Egyptian leader to join this international summit on Trump's Gaza peace plan in Sharm el-Sheikh today. This is the latest that we are getting right now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke on phone with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. As you know, the second half of this day is going to be dominated by this international summit on Gaza peace, which is being co-hosted by Donald Trump and Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. What are the main issues on the agenda and what outcomes can this yield? That is something that remains to be seen, and everyone will be closely watching in for that as well. Media channel outlet 12 is reporting that during the call, Trump was listening in, and Netanyahu has now accepted an invitation by the Egyptian leader to join the international summit on Trump's Gaza peace plan in Sharm el-Sheikh today. So this is the latest that we are getting right now. We are yet to see what sort of results this peace summit can yield. Trump was, as you know, earlier in the Israeli Knesset as well, the UK Prime Minister. There are various reactions that are pouring in from all around as well. Now we know that Netanyahu has accepted the invitation by the Egyptian leader to join this international summit. Remember, we were also speaking earlier of the Palestinian Authority being in attendance in the Gaza Peace Summit, which is to be co-hosted by Trump and Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. We do know now that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will now also be attending this peace summit, where about 20 other heads of states are expected to arrive as well. We know that Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is also set to be attending the international summit in Egypt alongside Donald Trump and other world leaders, and now also Netanyahu. He was invited also by the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who's leading this event in Sharm el-Sheikh alongside Donald Trump. Ministers from 20 other countries are expected to attend as well, and these are the live visuals that we're getting right now. We do know that right now Donald Trump is in Israel. He is in the Knesset right now. He is set to address the Knesset in a short while from now. You can see all leaders and MPs gathered there. So these are the live visuals that we're getting from the Knesset right now, where Donald Trump is set to address the Israeli parliament in a short while from now. Now, ahead of US President Donald Trump's speech at the Knesset, experts and analysts from across the world gave their analysis on the Gaza hostage release and the ceasefire. Listen to this.
Well, in a way, it shows you that it isn't military force that helped in rescuing the hostages. It is diplomatic negotiations. And in this case, certainly a lot of credit goes to President Trump for bringing the pressure on Israel to come back to the negotiating table. I'm hopeful that what we are witnessing today will bring us back to the path of some kind of a peace.
This is a momentous day, and Donald Trump will be getting a hero's welcome, really, in Israel for making this happen and for giving families relief after so long. But at the same time, there is an undercurrent of criticism. Back in January, there was a ceasefire that would have seen all the hostages released, but it fell apart largely due to changing political calculations on the part of Benjamin Netanyahu. So while Israelis are welcoming Trump's role, there's a lot of criticism of their own Prime Minister for not doing this deal earlier.
Fortunately, we've come to a happy end at the beginning, but this does not mean that the problem is solved. Why I'm saying this? Okay, the hostages were returned, and there were 80 in reality, but most of them are buried and that they are dead. So there are only 20 living, and they were all given to Israel. In return, from the Israeli prisons, there are unknown numbers of hostages who are waiting to be released by the Israelis and given to Hamas.
First of all, the Gazans are happy that the war stopped after 2 years of humanitarian sufferance. And today also there are some 170 trucks loaded of humanitarian aids, food and medicine allowed to enter to the Gaza Strip so the Palestinian Gaza can get some relief. And their sons, beloved sons, of the Israeli jails will be freed today and they will receive them. And despite some will be deported to Egypt, but majority will remain in Gaza, and that's another sign of hope.
All right, we're now cutting across to the live visuals that we're getting right now, where everyone is gathering to hear the address from Donald Trump, who will be addressing the Knesset in a short while. There you can see on your screens right now, Pete Hegseth there with Marco Rubio. These are the live visuals that we are getting from the Israeli Knesset at the moment. US President Donald Trump is in Israel before he heads to Egypt for the Gaza Peace Summit that he's co-hosting with Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. There you can see the visuals on your screens right now. Pete Hegseth there, Marco Rubio. Trump is all set to address the Israeli Knesset in a short while from now. This, as you know, that Hamas has released all 20 live hostages today in 2 batches of 7 and 13. Israel is to, of course, facilitate the return of a lot of the prisoners as well in exchange for the hostages. Right now, all alive hostages are back in Israel. They were first handed over to the Red Cross and then the IDF. There were hundreds gathered in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square, waiting for the return of their loved ones and their family. We're now, of course, waiting for Donald Trump's Knesset address. Trump arrived in Tel Aviv to mark the return of Israeli hostages by Hamas after more than 2 years in captivity. He is due to speak in the Knesset. And he did tell the reporters, in fact, while heading to the Knesset as well, that Hamas will disarm. All right. Joining us on the broadcast right now is Fleur Hassan Nahum, Israel's Special Envoy for Trade and Innovation, former Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Of course, it is a big day. All living hostages are back on Israeli soil. We saw the scenes coming out of Tel Aviv's Hostages Square. Of course, we know US President Donald Trump is in Israel right now as well and expected to address the Knesset in a short while from now. What can we expect?
Well, I think that what we're seeing today are historic scenes. Not only did we not imagine that all of the living hostages would be able to come home in one piece, because we know that Hamas, as a jihadi terrorist group, wanted to keep their last bit of leverage over Israel. So he managed to do that. So did Netanyahu. But today we're hearing that President Trump has invited Prime Minister Netanyahu to go to Sharm el-Sheikh, to go to this peace conference, bringing all the regional partners and other European partners as well. And maybe this is the beginning of a new era. There's also rumors that the Indonesian president has spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu, that the Sunni moderate Arab countries that we hope will be part of the day after in Gaza are fully engaged. So we could be seeing here the beginning of something that in Israel we've yearned for since our establishment, our re-establishment of the Jewish state in 1948.
Right, absolutely. That is the other big development, that the Israeli Prime Minister has accepted the invitation of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to attend that international peace summit that we're expecting later in the day as well. All eyes will be on that. I want to ask, do you think all the partners come together and do you think they can actually sort out the issues that still remain unanswered, the uncertainties that still persist despite this 20-point peace plan and despite all the hostages being back on Israeli soil?
Well, the thing that's brilliant about this 20-point plan, which is inverse to other plans that were offered before, is that the cards, we hold the cards. We will only retreat to a certain point if the disarmament occurs, which means we still keep our perimeter, a kind of deep perimeter, as long as they don't disarm. So the incentives are for Hamas to disarm and not for Israel to try and bend backwards for this terrorist group. And that's why the tables have turned in that sense. I'm not sure. You know, we're dealing with a very toxic jihadi ideology. But I think what President Trump and Netanyahu have managed to do is to corner the jihadists by turning their own friends and supporters as the main point of pressure on them. Qatar and Turkey are the main supporters of Hamas, and they are the ones that are being used and leveraged by Donald Trump in order to get what we need to have quiet and perhaps maybe even peace.
Now, right, we have spoken about Qatar as well, and we heard what Donald Trump had to say about Qatari involvement in this and mediation in this as well. If the disarmament occurs, and that really is the major point here, if that does happen, do you think this 20-point peace plan, it is somehow, in some ways perhaps, not address some of the issues of legitimacy and perhaps enforceability? Because when we talk about guarantees, could it be that once again we could come back to square one and when it comes to the second round of negotiations? Or do you think that can be dealt with?
I think that even if it does, their main leverage were the hostages. As long as the hostages were there, Israel was limited in what we could do. Now they're not there. That's the first thing. Except for the ones that need a decent
I'm so sorry
burial.
to interject. I'm so sorry to interject, but just to let our viewers know that these are the live visuals that we're getting right now. If we could just have them on, and these are the live visuals, as you can see, hundreds and hundreds who've gathered here, all sorts of emotions right now. Ms. Naum, let me just come back to you. I just had to go across to these live visuals that we're getting right now. It is a big day indeed, as you mentioned, a historic day. Sorry, Ms. Naum, please continue.
Well, the live visuals that you're showing, in fact, are the terrorists being released, which was my next point. We've had to release 200 terrorists with blood on their hands who've killed many, many hundreds of people in order to get, that's the price that Israel has paid and is always willing to pay to get to the hope of peace. I have a friend who was stabbed 18 times and her friend was killed in front of her eyes, and her stabber is being released right now. The killer of her friend is being released right now. So let's not forget the price that Israel has had to pay to get to this point.
Right, these are the live visuals from Ramallah. You're right to say that as well. And now that being said, when we talk about the issues that remain, you've mentioned that this release comes for many. This is not a jubilant moment as we're seeing on the other side of the border. In Tel Aviv, we've seen how people have been packed in the hostages square. They are, of course, relieved after 2 years of captivity, all of those hostages that have now been released. That being said, when we speak about the war being over, would you say the war is really over, or do you think that there's still a long, long way to go?
Well, let me tell you essentially when the war will be over, when the Palestinian leadership and their enablers and funders actually understand that Israel is not going away. They've been lying to their people for almost 80 years and telling them this. One day, we're going to kick out the Jews from the region. We're going to dismantle the state of Israel, and we're going to get the whole thing, and we're going to kill every last Jew. This is the rhetoric in schools. This is the rhetoric in the media, and this is the rhetoric of the politicians. And it's not, they've never, ever been invested in getting a state, because if they would have been, they would have a state by now. Their main investment has been in the destruction of the state of Israel. So we will only have real peace once the Palestinian leadership understand that Israel is not going anywhere. And therefore, the only way to move forward is to accept we're here and then build something next to us. If they can't do that, we will not have peace.
All right. Now, some would argue that, of course, addressing the question of a two-state solution and statehood is the path to peace, something that was also left out of the 20-point peace plan. Do you think that will come up in the discussions today in Egypt? And do you think that is something that all partners and sides can deal with?
Well, I don't, like I said, Hamas have said they don't want a two-state solution. So it really depends who the partners are. Israel has tried 5 times to have a two-state solution, and they've always rejected it. And to be honest, a two-state solution is a very dangerous prospect for us, because instead of rockets being thrown from Gaza to Tel Aviv, we would have rockets from Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, being thrown to our airports, and that would be the end of our economy. And so, no, at the moment, there's really no desire on our part. Look what happened when we tried to give them a state with Gaza. Not at all. But do we want the autonomy, the self-determination and the autonomy of the Palestinian people? Yes, we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Nam. We just want to let our viewers know that Donald Trump is now in the Knesset, and he's expected to address the Knesset in a short while from now. He's just entered. Everyone there completely glued in to see what Donald Trump has to say. He is expected to speak in the Knesset in just a few moments from now. He's already there.
נא לשבת. חברות וחברי הכנסת, היום יום שני, כ"א בתשרי התשפ"ו, 13 באוקטובר 2025, ואני מתכבד לפתוח את הישיבה המיוחדת של הכנסת לכבוד נשיא ארצות הברית של אמריקה, מר דונלד ג'יי טראמפ. חברות וחברי הכנסת, בטרם נתחיל אני מזכיר שישיבה זו היא ישיבה מיוחדת ולכן לא יהיו בה הפרעות. מי שיפריע יוצא מאולם המליאה ולא יורשה לשוב אליה עד תום הישיבה. לא תהיינה אזהרות. בנוסף, ניתן יהיה למחוא כפיים בישיבה זו כפי שכבר ראיתם. כבוד נשיא המדינה יצחק הרצוג ורעייתו מיכל, כבוד ראש הממשלה בנימין נתניהו ורעייתו שרה, ראש האופוזיציה יאיר לפיד ורעייתו ליהי, שרים וחברי הכנסת, special recognition to Minister Ron Dermer, who led special recognition to Minister Ron Dermer, who led the negotiation team on behalf of Israel. Thank you, Ron. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane, two key players, President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, who is here with his partner Lauren, and Jared Kushner, who is here with his wife Ivanka. And thank you guys for everything that you have done to bring about this day. Ambassador of the United States to Israel, my dear friend and my absolute favorite rock star, Mike Huckabee. שגריר ישראל בארצות הברית, יחיאל לייטר. תודה. שגרירים וראשי משלחות זרות, ראש עיריית ירושלים משה ליאון ורעייתו סתווית, סגל א' של המדינה, ראשי גופי הביטחון, אלה שנמצאים איתנו ואלה שבשטח, הרמטכ"ל רב אלוף אייל זמיר, המפכ"ל רב ניצב דניאל לוי, נציב שירות בתי הסוהר רב גונדר קובי יעקבי, הוא נמצא בשטח, הוא מאלה שנמצאים בשטח, נציב הכבאות וההצלה רב תפסר אייל כספי, ראש המוסד דוד ברנע, ראש שירות הביטחון הכללי האלוף במילואים דוד זיני, בהצלחה. ראש מנהלת החטופים גל הירש, ראשי ערים וראשי רשויות מקומיות, מנכ"ל הכנסת שהרים ב3 ימים ביקור שדרושים לו 3 חודשים לפחות, משה צ'יקו אדרי, מזכיר הכנסת עורך הדין דן מרזוק, היועצת המשפטית לכנסת עורכת הדין שגית אפיק, קצין הכנסת ניצב יובל חן, חברי הנהלת הכנסת, משפחות חטופים, משפחות שכולות, סגל א' של המדינה, מכובדים מהארץ ומהעולם, ואני פותר בזאת את הדוברים הבאים מאזכור כל המכובדים. קהל יקר, אזרחי ישראל, יש לי הכבוד המיוחד לברך יחד איתכם את החבר הטוב ביותר שהיה אי פעם למדינת ישראל בבית הלבן. ברוך הבא לישראל, ברוך הבא לירושלים, ברוך הבא לכנסת, הנשיא דונלד ג'יי טראמפ. אדוני הנשיא, אני מבקש להודות לך על שהענקת לכנסת את הזכות והכבוד להיות הפרלמנט הראשון מחוץ לארצות הברית שאתה מבקר בו בכהונתך הנוכחית. במסורת היהודית נהוג לברך ברגעים ייחודיים שכאלה, ברוך שנתן מכבודו לבשר ודם. תודה לך, הנשיא טראמפ. כבוד הנשיא, לפני 2000 שנה הוגלינו בכוח הזרוע מנחלת אבותינו, אבל בכל התפוצות בהן חיינו, מעולם לא שכחנו את ירושלים, הלב הפועם של העם היהודי מאז נוסדה כבירתו לפני 3,000 שנה, ואליה התפללנו שנה אחר שנה אחר שנה. ולפני 7 שנים היית אתה, הנשיא טראמפ, שבשם ארצות הברית של אמריקה הכרת בריבונות הישראלית על ירושלים. אתה מימשת הבטחה שנשיאים רבים לפניך הבטיחו, אבל רק אתה קיימת. העברת את השגרירות האמריקאית לירושלים השלמה והמאוחדת. תודה לך, הנשיא טראמפ. משחר הקמתה נאלצה מדינת ישראל להילחם, אך תמיד הושיטה את ידה לשלום. לפני 5 שנים הובלת יחד עם ראש הממשלה נתניהו את הסכמי אברהם. זכיתי, כן, מגיע. זכיתי לכהן בממשלה שחתמה עליהם, ולימים הם היו בעלי משמעות רבה עבורי גם ברמה האישית. משום שלפני 2.5 זכיתי להיות יושב ראש הכנסת הראשון המקבל הזמנה רשמית לבקר בפרלמנט של מדינה ערבית, וזו הייתה המדינה שבה שני הוריי שנמצאים כאן איתנו נולדו וגדלו, מרוקו. קרבת בין ישראל לבין 4 מדינות ערביות בהסכם שבבסיסו שלום תמורת שלום. תודה לך, הנשיא טראמפ. הרבה לפני כהונתך הראשונה, כבר ב-2011, זיהית את הסכנה שבאיראן גרעינית וכתבת, ואני אומר זאת בשפת המקור ברשותכם. Iran's quest of nuclear weapons is a major threat to our nation's national security interests. We can't allow Iran to go nuclear. איום על ארצות הברית משמעו איום על העולם החופשי כולו. את עמדתך העקבית ששמה את אמריקה ראשונה, America first, אך לא לבדה, but not America alone, הבאת עמך לבית הלבן בשתי כהונותיך. לפני 4 חודשים, לאחר שראש הממשלה נתניהו פתח במבצע...
All right, these are the live visuals that we are getting from the Knesset. This is the live feed that we're getting right now. As you can see, the speaker inviting Donald Trump, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Jared Kushner, all those in presence in the Knesset right now. Trump is expected to address the Knesset in just a few moments from now. Hamas has released all 20 hostages earlier in the day, and Trump had gone to Tel Aviv to mark the release of all the 20 living hostages. The remaining 28, the remains of those have to come yet as well. Later in the day, the other big development here would be the summit, that's the Gaza Peace Summit in Egypt, which will be co-hosted by Donald Trump and Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
כבוד הנשיא, היום העם היהודי מציין את סיום חג הסוכות, ומחר נציין את שמחת תורה. בשמחת תורה לפני 2 לא שמחנו. היה זה היום הקשה ביותר שחוותה מדינת ישראל משחר הקמתה והעם היהודי מאז השואה. עשרות פעמים הגעתי יחד עם מנהיגים זרים למקום הטבח, עם רבים מהם ישבתי לצפות בתיעוד המצולם של הזוועות שאני יודע שגם אתה ראית. שבועות ספורים לאחר ה-7 באוקטובר.
All right, so now for the first time in more than 2 years, all 20 living hostages are back on Israeli soil. There are no living hostages under Hamas captivity anymore. Hamas released these hostages in 2 batches of 7 and 13 earlier in the day. Donald Trump and other world leaders are later set to gather for the Gaza Peace Summit, which is in Egypt. US President Donald Trump declared the war in West Asia is over as he began this trip first to where he is right now in Israel and then to Egypt for the Gaza Peace Summit. He'd come to Tel Aviv to mark the release of Israeli hostages by Hamas after more than 2 years and is now at the Knesset where he is due to speak. He has also assured the reporters before heading to the Knesset that Hamas will disarm. Of course, later in the day, a lot of the unresolved issues and the issues in the 20-point peace plan which were not touched upon will be addressed, or at least that is the hope. We also did hear just a short while back that Abdel Fattah al-Sisi also extended an invitation to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was on a call with him earlier, and he will also now be heading to Egypt for the Gaza Peace Summit. All right, for more on this from Jerusalem, now we're joined by Stav Cohen, who is a soldier in an elite reserve unit of the IDF. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. We would really... All right. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. If you could just tell us what your assessment of where things stand right now is, because of course it is a big achievement that all the 20 living hostages are back in Israel. However, going forward, where do you really see things headed from now?
Thank you very much for having me, first of all. And here's the thing, I fought in Gaza in 2014, previous Gaza war, which began after Hamas and the other proxies of Iran kidnapped 3 teenagers, Israeli teenagers, into Judea and Samaria, and then same thing happened. We went after them, got into Gaza, fought Hamas, and we got out before we got the job done. Nowadays, it's a holiday in Israel. Everybody are thrilled, including me. But this enthusiasm will turn into a national grief as soon as we'll see those 28 more coffins that are about to come to Israel. Besides that, Hamas has already recruited over 7,000 soldiers more, terrorists more, and they spread all over Gaza, meaning you'll see very soon more attempts of Hamas to hijack civilians, to invade IDF bases, just like they did last week, where 6 of them tried to get in. So from my perspective, I'm optimistic, yet I stay realistic at the same time, and I fear that we'll see more of the same soon enough.
Mr. Cohen, also, of course, I would like to ask you, a lot of this hinges on Hamas's disarmament. How do you see the second phase of negotiations going and how things pan out on that front? Do you think, because Donald Trump has assured that will happen, we also know that they are going to have that peace summit in Egypt later today, to which I would also like to clarify now that as per Israeli Prime Minister's office, even though he has been extended an invitation, he will not be joining that summit. That being said, be that as it may, we know the Palestinian Authority is going to be there. This question of disarmament is going to come up. The question of statehood, that is something that's going to come up as well. So what are you expecting?
I'm expecting from Abu Mazen, the head of the Palestinian Authority, the very same thing that he did up until this day, which is saying, and I quote, even if I'll have him, Abu Mazen, if he'll have $1 left, I will give it to the Shaheed, to the prisoners in the Israeli prison, meaning the PA, the Palestinian Authority, is a terror organization just like any other, just that they are more organized. That's the difference. And about Hamas and the next phase of that deal, you see, Hamas is the only military in this war that is fighting with civilian clothes, yet will you have ceasefire, all of a sudden they have uniforms. What you're about to see over the next few months is incomplete deal. So they're gonna keep fighting with a different name, with a different title, with a different symbol, but it's going to be the very same people with the very same purpose, which is radical Islam taking over the Western world. Israel is just the front line, but I mean, you can see in Europe, you can see in the States, they are going after everybody.
All right, like to that, an incomplete deal, I would just like to come back to the point that you made earlier, and I want to ask you, do you think the 20-point peace plan that was brought in and what we're seeing now, do you think it does enough to ensure legitimacy and insurability going forward as well? Because that is really the need of the hour, and to ensure a sustainable, viable and lasting peace. Do you think if that's not happened so far, do you think that can happen in Egypt?
No, I hate to be the party pooper, but Egypt is one of the most anti-Semite countries in the world, including many things that Sisi, their president, actually said. He said, "You see, you meaning the Western world, you do peace as a result. I do peace as in order to get to my result as a tool. So peace agreement." Two-state solution, Palestinians, those are all Western terms. Here in the Middle East, in Jerusalem, it's desert. It's desert society with tribes, and you're fighting among each other in order to survive. That's how it goes here. I don't see that plan actually happening. I can see why everybody are afraid from Trump, and this is why Hamas wants to survive, as an organization, even if they'll have another name. So they're doing what they need to do in order to survive, But I don't see that plan actually has anything to do with peace. Peace, Western term, doesn't go with Middle East. I'm sorry. This is how I see things.
All right, because some may argue that you're being quite a skeptic here, and I just want to clarify. Are you saying that peace here is just being used as a tool and perhaps a means to an end? Is that what you're saying?
As far as Egypt, as far as Hamas, as far as Qatar, as far as Turkey, yes, peace agreement and that plan included is just merely a tool in order to get what they truly want. People that will say that I'm skeptical are welcome to fight like I had. When I was 18 in Gaza, I fought Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Fatah, GAP, in Judea and Samaria, in Gaza, you name it, I was there. And I'm just out of thousands and thousands of hundreds of thousands of IDF soldiers. When you meet them in the battlefield, there's no room for PC, for politically correct. They are on drugs, they are motivated by hate. All they want to do is kill as every last Jew on earth. And let me tell you one quick last thing. When I fought in Gaza in 2014, many children were being sent by Hamas on bicycles in order to make us, the IDF, stop our shooting so Hamas could change their position and, make their position better. They also have kids transport weapons from A to B. The very same kids that we never took their shot were actually the very same kids who turned to be the October 7th massacre on, 10 years later. So we will never harm kids, and this is our weak spot. They know how to use our weak spot, our humanitarian against us. But it's all about education. As long as Hamas will have control over Gaza, as long as they'll keep pumping their false narrative and propaganda into the children's minds, we'll have more of the same. Just like 2014 war Gaza, just like 2023 October 7th war, and all of the terror attacks that you have in between, right?
Mr. Cohen, if I could just come in there. On ground, does this essentially mean that nothing changes? Because what about the millions of Palestinians who've been displaced and who are just stuck in this crossfire? What happens to them next? Of course, a lot of questions, as I've been saying, have been left unanswered, and you've agreed to this as well. But is the situation on ground going to change? Is the needle going to move on that front at all? Or are you saying we're just going to keep seeing a repeat of this?
We will. Yes, the answer is yes, if Hamas will stay in power. Tell you what, I believe that I care about the Palestinians way more than Hamas cares about the Palestinians. Whenever I fight in Gaza and I see civilians, and it happens all of the time, I personally, me, Stav, not an IDF spokesperson, okay, merely a soldier. I give them my water, I share with them my food, because, it sucks. It's a war zone, and they're thirsty and they're hungry. So we share. We literally give them our things. We'll carry their belongings and help them to go from A to be to get to safety. Hamas, on the other hand, hijacked an entire society, all of the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, using them as human shields. So we will keep seeing more of the same if Hamas will stay in power, because you don't have to take my word for that in order to realize what they wrote on their charter, which is the destruction of the state of Israel. And just the other day, the IDF released Yahya Sinwar's notes, personal notes, with his vision to what he called Palestine, to Israel. So there you have it.
All right. Mr. Cohen, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast with your insights and your perspective on this.
אני מבקש לאחל מכל ליבי החלמה מהירה ושלמה לפצועים ולחטופים השבים. כמה טוב שבאתם הביתה. הנשיא טראמפ, מי ייתן והעושה שלום במרומיו יברך אותך, נשיא השלום.
All right, once again, this is the live feed from the Knesset, where you can see Donald Trump there, who is expected to address the Knesset in just a short while. We will be hearing that address from Donald Trump soon as well. We're just waiting for that. There have been a lot of developments through the course of the day. It's been a historic day. All 20 living hostages are back on Israeli soil. The remains of the rest are to be expected as well. We also saw the exchange of some prisoners from the Israeli side. Right now, this is the development. In batches of 2, the Israeli hostages who had been held in captivity for over 2 years were released, handed over to the Red Cross and then to the IDF. US President Donald Trump is right now in Tel Aviv, and he is there to mark the release of all of the Israeli hostages. He will be addressing the Knesset soon. Later in the day, we're also expected to see a Gaza peace summit in Egypt. There you can see Netanyahu is in the Knesset now as well. All right, and there you have Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the Knesset.
מכובדי הנשיא הרצוג ורעייתו מיכל, מכובדיי הרבים, ובראשם ידידנו הגדול, נשיא ארצות הברית,
All right, and there you have Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressing the Knesset in Hebrew. There you have US President Donald Trump right next to him as well, who is also expected to address the Knesset in a short while from now.
ברוך בואך לירושלים בירתנו הנצחית.
All right. And with that, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of the News Bulletin. Don't go anywhere, though. We will keep getting you the live feed from the Knesset and Trump's address as well. Stay tuned.
Over, and this is the first time they've ever seen where everybody is unified.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Them. My friends, this is only a partial list, but it's enough to affirm what I've said time and again. Donald Trump is the greatest friend that the state of Israel has ever had in the White House. No American president has ever done more for Israel. And as I said in Washington, it ain't even close. It's really not a match. Mr. President, today we welcome you here to thank you for your pivotal leadership in putting forward a proposal that got the backing of almost the entire world. A proposal that brings all our hostages home. A proposal that ends the war by achieving all our objectives. A proposal that opens the door to an historic expansion of peace in our region and beyond our region. Mr. President, you are committed to this peace. I am committed to this peace. And together, Mr. President, we will achieve this peace. We've done it before. We've done it before in the Abraham Accords, and we'll do it again. Mr. President, today the Jewish calendar marks the end of 2 years of war. That war began on October 7th, on the Jewish festival of Simchat Torah. You always tell me, and you tell the world, remember October 7th. Mr. President, we remember. We remember the thousands of Hamas terrorists who stormed into our towns and kibbutzim. We remember the 1,200 people Hamas savagely slaughtered in cold blood, including dozens and dozens of Americans. We remember entire families burnt alive as they embraced each other. We remember the beautiful young Israelis brutally gunned down at the Nova Music Festival. We remember the hundreds of our citizens who were dragged into the dungeons of Gaza, including 12 Americans, men and women, young and old, babies and elderly Holocaust survivors. My friends, Mr. President, Donald, these monsters take babies as hostages. In response to this barbaric attack on October 7th, Israel did what it had to do. With indomitable courage, we set out to defend our people, to defeat our enemies, and to release our hostages. Our heroic soldiers fought like lions. They fought on the front lines of civilization and barbarism. Israel achieved amazing victories over Hamas and the entire Iran terror axis. Sinwar, Dev, Khania, Nasrallah, Assad, they're all gone. Iran's nuclear weapons and ballistic missile program, with your enormous help, Mr. President, rolled back. Half the Houthi leadership wiped out. But the price of this victory, the price of these victories, has been heavy. Nearly 2,000 of Israel's finest were lost, nearly half in battle. They left behind parents, spouses, siblings, and children. Their love and laughter, their promise and potential were lost forever. To the families of our fallen fighters, many of them are here, I say, I know the depth of your pain. I know the inconsolable grief that will accompany you for the rest of your lives. The state of Israel bows its head in eternal gratitude to our fallen heroes. Because of these heroes, our nation will survive. Because of these heroes, our nations will thrive. And because of these heroes, our nation will have peace. Mr. President, thousands of our brave soldiers were also wounded, suffering terrible blows to body and soul. Brave soldiers like Ari Spitz. Ari is an American. Ari is an American Israeli who was injured Ari is an American Israeli who was injured in Gaza while searching for Hamas terrorists and weapons. 2 of Ari's comrades were killed in this action, and 10 were injured. Ari was presumed dead, but made a miraculous recovery despite losing 3 limbs. Ari, stand up for a minute alone. Stand up. There you go. There. Ari, you are the spirit of Joshua. You are the spirit of David. You are the spirit of the Maccabees. You are the spirit of Israel. I salute you. We all salute you. Sabine Tassa of Kibbutz Netiv HaAsara is watching us today from the Israeli consulate in Los Angeles. Sabine lost her husband and her oldest son on October 7th. She is the mother of 3 other boys. 2 of them, Koren and Shai, witnessed their father jump on a Hamas grenade to save his 2 sons. We all saw the film of those 2 boys crying out in pain, "Father is dead. Why? Why did God save me?" Mr. President, my friend Donald, I've seen some very tough things in my life, but I couldn't bring myself to watch those boys suffering again. So I didn't see this film except once. Yet Sabine, their mother, has had the strength and fortitude to show this film across the world. And my wife Sarah and I asked her, "Sabine, how do you do it? Why do you do it?" And she answered, "I do it to show the entire world the monsters Israel is fighting and the justice of our cause." This is what she's doing once again in Los Angeles. Sabine, you can hear me now, so I want to tell you on behalf of all of us, you embody the spirit of our biblical heroines, Deborah, Ruth, and Esther. You too are the spirit of Israel, and we all salute you. Mr. President, you asked me on our many conversations during the 12-day war with Iran, you asked me, how are the people holding up? And I said to you, our people are strong. Israelis are a nation of lions with unlimited resolve to defend our country and secure our future. The people give strength to our soldiers, and the people give strength to me and to my colleagues. The Jewish people have risen from the ashes time and again, but when we formed the State of Israel and the Army of Israel, we pledged never again would be defenseless against our enemies. And that resolute strength not only assures our survival, it assures our future, it assures peace. We have paid a high price for this war, but our enemies now understand just how powerful and just how determined Israel is. They understand that attacking Israel on October 7th was a catastrophic mistake. They understand that Israel is strong and that Israel is here to stay. And this, Mr. President, is the indispensable foundation of peace. Peace through strength. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a momentous day, a day of great joy as the remaining hostages come home. My wife Sarah and I have met with the hostage families many times. There were no words to describe their agony, only tears of bottomless sorrow and unimaginable pain. At the beginning of the war, I promised to bring all the hostages home. Today, with the indispensable help, the determined and focused help, the unremitting help of President Trump and his team, and with the incredible sacrifice and courage of the soldiers of Israel, we are fulfilling that promise. It has been a long journey to get here. In the first week of the war, our brave soldiers put military pressure on Hamas, and the international community put diplomatic pressure on them. This enabled us to secure the release of over 100 hostages. In heroic rescue attempts behind enemy lines, Israel's special forces rescued 8 live hostages and brought back the remains of dozens more. But as time went on, we all know what happened. The diplomatic pressure was turned on its head. More and more governments bought into Hamas's false propaganda. More and more governments succumbed to anti-Semitic mobs in their own countries. They just turned on Israel. They called for us to surrender to Hamas demands, just leave Gaza immediately, they said, end the war without committing to disarm Hamas, without committing to demilitarize Gaza. Had Israel succumbed to those demands, not only would Sinwar, Nasrallah, Assad, and Iran's missile and nuclear program remain intact. Not only that, because in no time, the Hamas killers would be back on the border fence, ready to repeat the horrors of October 7th again and again, as they vowed to do. But just at that point of maximum pressure on Israel, a man named Donald J. Trump was elected President of the United States. And ladies and gentlemen, overnight, everything changed. Everything. Mr. President, thanks to your unequivocal backing of Israel, we secured a second hostage deal within weeks of your election. And in the months that followed, we worked closely together to forge a path to bring the remaining hostages home and end the war. End the war in a way that ensures the disarming of Hamas, the demilitarization of Gaza, and that Gaza would never again pose a threat to Israel. 2 months ago, you fully backed my decision to send the IDF into the last Hamas stronghold in Gaza City. You shared my view that this military pressure would help free the hostages. And despite all the criticism, all the naysayers, we were right. Hamas caved in. And 2 weeks ago, you succeeded in doing something miraculous. You succeeded in doing something that no one believed was possible. You brought most of the Arab world, you brought most of the world behind your proposal to free the hostages and end the war. I want to thank Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Ron Dermer for their great contribution to this effort. And I want to thank our negotiating team. I believe that the close cooperation between the two of us, between our two nations, combining Israel's military pressure and President Trump's unmatched global leadership. I have to tell you, I've seen a lot of American presidents. I've seen them all in the time that I've been here, and I've been here quite a lot of time. I've never seen anyone move the world so quickly, so decisively, so resolutely as our friend President Donald J. Trump. With our military pressure and President Trump's global leadership, we achieved this historic moment. It's a moment of indescribable joy as our nation embraces our sons who are coming home. Mr. President, this week, Jews around the world are going to read the book of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, in the Bible. The Bible has many miraculous moments. One of them was your decision to bomb Fordo. I think it was a pivot of history because it wasn't meant only to bomb Fordo. That action and your previous action of taking out Qasem Soleimani, the architect of death, I think that changed the balance of power in the world. You brought America back again to the driver's seat. Now, I said that we're going to read this week the book of Ecclesiastes. It's not a book of action. It's a book of meditations, of thought, a perspective on life and on death. And in this book, we read the immortal words of King Solomon. To everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. Et milchama ve'et shalom. A time for peace and a time for war. The last 2 years have been a time of war. The coming years will hopefully be a time for peace. Peace inside Israel and peace outside Israel. I look forward to continuing marching with you on the path we paved together with the Abraham Accords. Under your leadership, we can forge new peace treaties with Arab countries in the region and Muslim countries beyond the region. Abraham's children will work together to build a better future, a future that will unite civilization against barbarism, light against darkness, and hope against despair. And my friends, I believe that with President Trump's leadership, this will happen a lot faster than people think. As Prime Minister of Israel, I extend my hand to hold those who seek peace with us. No one wants peace more than the people of Israel. Israel will always remain vigilant in defending itself. And Israel will always remain full of hope. Hope is our national anthem. Hope is our creed. Hope is our strength. It is time, my friends, to realize that hope and expand the circle of peace. Mr. President, thank you for all you have done for us. I have submitted your nomination to be the first non-Israeli recipient of the Israel Prize, Israel's highest award. As to that other prize, just a question of time, you'll get it. But I want you to get the Israel Prize, our highest award, to our greatest friend. When others were weak, you were strong. When others were fearful, you were bold. When others abandoned us, you stood by our side. On behalf of the government and people of Israel, I thank you for your extraordinary friendship. Thank you for helping bring our hostages home. Thank you for supporting Israel's march to victory. Thank you for paving a path to peace. מכובדי נשיא ארצות הברית, ידידי דונלד, ברוך הבא לישראל, ברוך הבא לירושלים, ברוך הבא ביום המרגש הזה, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. May God bless you and your family, Mr. President. May God bless America. May God bless Israel. And may God bless the covenant between our two promised lands. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Come on up, opposition. Come on, opposition.
Yeah. Okay.
אני מתכבד להזמין כעת את ראש האופוזיציה, חבר הכנסת יאיר לפיד.
Mr. Speaker, members of Knesset, ministers, President Herzog, Prime Minister Netanyahu, distinguished guests, Your Excellency, President Trump. For 2 years, we waited for this moment. 2 years of sleepless nights, 2 years without air in our lungs. Our eyes are filled with tears today, our hearts are filled with gratitude, our children are coming home. In the Babylonian Talmud, a sacred book of the Jewish people, it is written, whoever destroys one life, it is as though he destroyed an entire world, and whoever saves one life, it is though as he has saved an entire world. Mr. President, you have saved the lives of our hostages. But you saved so much more. You have saved the souls of the bereaved whose loved ones now will be brought home for burial. You have saved thousands of soldiers who will now not fall in battle. And you have saved millions from the horrors of war. You have saved more than one life, and each life is an entire world. This is a historic moment, and a reminder that history is shaped by people. It is shaped by those who know the past, but have the vision to change the future. When you were elected, you declared that you would be the president of peace. You have kept your word. The fact that you were not awarded the Nobel Peace Prize is a grave mistake by the committee. But They will have no choice, Mr. President. They will have to award it to you next year. Peace will not come by waiting. It will come by building, by reaching out, and by daring once again to believe. You, Mr. President, have done the unimaginable. We will be eternally grateful. But we also need to take responsibility. The destiny of Israel will always be written by the people of Israel. We must now prove ourselves worthy of what has been achieved. From its founding, Israel has said to the world that our strength, our power, rest upon our values. Israel is the strongest country in the Middle East because we are the only democracy in the Middle East. Because we believe in the principles laid in our Declaration of Independence, which says Israel will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places for all religions. Those are our values. That is who we are as people, as a country. Our neighbors must understand one more thing about us. We are not going anywhere. The Middle East is our home. We are here to stay. Our story did not end in the Bible. It began there. It continues in our laboratories and universities, in our innovation hubs. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and the Houthis, they all read the wrong intelligence reports. The real intelligence report on Israel's intentions is found in the book of Genesis. And I will give you and your descendants after you the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession. We call upon the nations of the Islamic world and all our neighbors, Saudi Arabia, Syria, others. We are here to stay. We can do great things together. Come and talk to us. Mr. President, you are the one who can make it happen as you did with the historic Abraham Accords. Then too, no one believed it was possible. Then too, you imposed your vision on everyone. While others spoke of difficulties, you created opportunity. You can be the one to bring the next wave of peace. The people of Israel support this. They want this. We are ready. And you can later today in Egypt with your unbelievably talented team, my friends Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, forge a regional alliance that will change not only the Middle East, but the entire world. After 2 years of war, the peoples of this region should look around and ask themselves, whose situation is better? Those who chose the path of peace or those who chose the path of war? Those who invested in their people, in the education of their children, in science and education and technology, or those who invested in hate and in violence? From here I say to all those who demonstrated against Israel these past 2 years, on the streets of London and Rome, in Paris and in Columbia University. I do not represent the government. As you know, I am the leader of the opposition. And I tell you, then, you were deceived. You were deceived. Propaganda experts, funded by terror money, manipulated you. Now that the war has stopped, you have time and a chance to go and learn the facts. The truth is, there was no genocide, no intentional starvation. The truth is, there was an